The rumbling of thunder-rasping voices creeps out from the gloomy darkness. The rough splintering wood and the cold drafts blew vehemently, giving slight cracks in the surface of the earth. The moaning of the wind, a cold, clammy hand with gigantic claws brushing through the pack revealing the full moon, which showed that something significant was about to happen. What was that? Every year, the full moon, which signifies the wolf moon, is accompanied by three-day festivals that all werewolves must attend. The last day was the main deal where the alpha does something extremely significant. What was that? At exactly 12 noon at midnight, light emitting from the moon heightened as it suddenly felt colder than ever. The moon rose in the sky, casting an eerie glow on the atmosphere. Its shadows seemed to move and dance in the gloomy darkness, as the air was filled with a strange energy. Reaching its apex, the trees seemed to creak, groaning through the wind. The sound of howling grew louder and closer until it was all around the pack. The night is fully ripe for the alpha to choose its mate, with other wolves gently resting on their various spots, enjoying the moment. The omegas arranged themselves one after the other, hoping to be chosen by the alpha. The alpha king Patrick sat on his throne and looked regal and imposing. His eyes were piercing as his sharp gaze swept over the crowd before him. He's dressed in fine robes with his crown sitting atop his head shining brightly in the light. He stood up and moved deliberately as his magnificent presence filled the place. The sound of the Alpha King's voice echoes within and through the corners of the pack. It's clear and resonant, a powerful tone that demands attention as the silence of the pack amplifies every one of his words. Finally, he speaks, his voice low and dangerous. Its scent strong and heady, as though it was a mixture of sandalwood, musk, and lavender, with a subtle hint of cloves with an overpowering and intoxicating aura, making it impossible to ignore. "Cindy, proceed forward," he commanded. "And as for the rest of the females, you may now leave," he instructed, his voice strong and clear. "For the long-awaited night is over. The Alpha King has made his choice, and that's the final verdict for the pack." Vanessa, one of the Omegas, was taken aback at his conclusion, as the crowd erupted in a chorus of gasps, and everyone returned to their various abodes waiting for the final coronation the next day. Many Omegas left the ceremony heartbroken, but one of them happened to be even more heart-piercing. Vanessa's point of view. Dressed in my simple gown, my hair pulled back in a tight bun, looking small and vulnerable amid the imposing surroundings. I felt the roughness of the stone floor beneath my feet. The air was cool and clammy, making my skin feel cold and damp. The fabric of my gown feels scratchy and quite uncomfortable. I entered my adobe as a musty scent from the room mixed with a faint smell of incense filled the place. My sweat mingled with anxiety, filling the air, creating a potent combination of a heavy and cloying scent, making it difficult for me to breathe. My mouth was dry, and my tongue felt thick and swollen, making it difficult to speak. I looked around the room, taking in the tall stone walls and high ceiling. My eyes were wide and bright, reflecting the level of pain I was having. I could hear the steady beat of my own heart, and the sound of my breath as it came out in short gasps. The echo of the Alpha King's voice reverberates in my ears, causing my head to spin. I sat alone in my room, staring out the window at the gray, overcast sky. The rain pounded against the glass as the wind howled outside. I could feel the cold seeping into my bones, and I pulled my blanket tighter around my shoulders. The silence was deafening, as I could hear the thudding of my heart in my chest. Tears welled up in my eyes as I let them fall, rolling down my cheeks onto my pillow. I could taste the saltiness of my tears as my nose was filled with the scent of wetness and dampness. I moaned as the bitter sting of disappointment filled my stomach. The darkness of the room made me feel small and alone, as I could feel some sort of emptiness bubbling within my heart. I remember that very day he groaned in my ears that he loved me over and over again, but he chose to be with another. I revealed, "If only he knows the kind of pain he's caused me tonight, even after everything we shared during our early stage of relationship right here in the pack." Pathetic. How he just woke up one morning only to throw all of that under the carpet for reasons best known to him. I will run away and never return. I said, vehemently drying my tears, reaching out to get my luggage. I can't sit and see my own alpha get mated to Cindy tomorrow. I might just pass out if it's happening right under my nose, I confessed, frantically hurrying up with my bags, and in a short while there were no traces of my footprints anywhere near the pack. The next day, which happens to be the important coronation, where the Alpha King uses his staff of power to crown his new Omega mate, Cindy, who was already there waiting for her mate. The Alpha King, Patrick, thundered from inside when he discovered that the spot where the staff was kept felt empty and exposed as if a piece of him had been taken away. He growled and snarled, searching for any sign of it. "Where's my staff?" "Ransack the entire pack and look for it immediately," he yelled, as in his chest, his clear and resonant voice echoed around the room, filling every corner and demanding immediate attention. His sense of smell heightened, picking up on every trace of scent in the room, detecting the lingering smell of a thief, a mixture of sweat and fear, but who could it be? The air was heavy with a scent of anger and rage. His eyes darted around the room, taking in every detail, his gaze intense and focused, looking for any clue. He is restless and angrily pacing back and forth, his footsteps echoing loudly throughout the room. He insists. His muscles are tense and his expression dark and brooding. The tension in the room was palpable, the air crackling with energy, the sound of his breathing loud and ragged. He sits uncomfortable, trying to think deeply to remember who or where he must have dropped it, his muscles unclenching and his breathing returning to normal. His eyes closed as he took his focus inward, trying to clear his mind and think rationally. His posture calm and composed, his hands resting in his lap. His thoughts slowed down as he analyzed the situation and considered his next move. He looks still, but his mind is extremely whirring, processing everything. It now dawned on him that his staff was with his first love, Vanessa. Frantically, he instructed some betas in the pack to go fetch her immediately. There was a sudden earthquake on the ground when they returned to tell the Alpha King, Patrick, that Vanessa was nowhere to be found. She's gone, alongside the staff. Oh no. What will now happen to King Patrick and his soon-to-be mate Cindy? Vanessa's point of view. It was a summer's day, the air still and oppressive. I stood up to continue my journey after taking a short nap. My ears clinged to the buzzing sound of the insects and the distant calls of birds. My skin sticky and sweaty, feeling irritated. In a short while, a rustling in the underbrush is heard. At first, I thought it was just an animal, but on the contrary, I saw a pair of glowing yellow eyes in the shadows. My heart starts to race. A primal sense of fear is felt within me. The first instinct that crossed my head was to run away, but my feet felt rooted to where I was standing, frozen in terror, my body trembling in trepidation. The lion steps out boldly, its muscles rippling beneath its golden fur. Its ear twitches as it sloshes back and forth. As it approached closer to me, I could hear its heart, breathing heavily, and the sound of its claws scraping against the ground. Suddenly, a rush of energy and strength coursed through my inside like a powerful and primal force, giving me an unusual strength and courage to fight back. The lion stared at me, its yellow eyes glowing with rage. With a fierce cry, I leaped towards the lion, determined to take it down. The impact of this primal force heightened coursing through my veins. My body was flooded with adrenaline, showering me with incredible speed. I dodged the lion's claws. As it lunged towards me, I leaped out of the way, then maneuvered, raking my nails across its flank. The lion roared in pain fury as I stood my ground, never backing down. I continued to dodge as I attacked, calculating every step all the way. Finally, there was an opening at the other corner. I voraciously held it, sinking my teeth into its neck. It falls to the ground, eyes glazing over. I stood up slowly in shock, asking myself how I was able to pull so much energy to the point of bringing down a full-fleshed lion. This was when it dawned on me that a strong, powerful force had taken over me, making me almost extremely supernatural for a person like me who could barely hurt a fly. A weak and heartbroken escapee by Omega trying to recover from the premium rejection and negligence served hot by King Alpha Patrick at the pack. I will crush Vanessa with my bare hands if I spot her, Alpha Patrick thundered, he yelled, forming a tight, clenched fist ready to devour absolutely anybody that comes closer. I shivered from within. Even my soon-to-be mate couldn't make me calm down. He was over the moon as I pleaded with the lunar goddess. "Can't we continue with the coronation ceremony and make Cindy my mate?" he asked, beckoning with a heavy heart pointing towards Cindy, who looked a bit confused about what was happening. The lunar goddess thundered from above, its voice soft but hard. "No, King Patrick. The entire pack is waiting for you to provide you with your staff of strength and authority, so this coronation can continue, and you will finally be with your mate." Alpha Patrick fired back in anger. "Can't you get it? Vanessa made away with it. She fled with my staff of strength and authority." I responded as the entire pack trembled, feeling the weight in my voice. "Don't you dare talk back to me in that way." The lunar goddess yelled, her tone strong and rebuking. "How could you abandon Vanessa after giving her high hopes and confessing your love to her?" She revealed as the ground trembled. "That's in the past. As you can see, this present, I now know what I want and who I want to spend the rest of my days with. Or do you want to manipulate me to make another choice?" Alpha Patrick asked, his voice audible but shaky like I was a bit scared. She fired back at me without hesitation. "You got what you deserve for being inconsiderate." "And see?" she demonstrated, pointing towards him. "You better find her if you really want to be with Cindy, who you claim to love. And lastly, you have just 4 weeks to do so," she concluded. Alpha Patrick remained mute for a minute, confused and almost frustrated. So many questions ran through his brain as he slowly sank into the recliner, completely drowning in thoughts. "Are I really doing the right thing?" he asked. "But I love Cindy, regardless of me and Vanessa's love story. I don't see myself building a future with her. Not that she ain't good enough, it doesn't just click." He contemplated with his heart running in circles. His heart suddenly went black, bubbling in anger out of the blues, giving myself a promise. If after 4 weeks I don't get my staff of strength and power back, then Vanessa should be ready to cry even more for the souls she left behind, as I will be taking each and every member of her household back to dust, he threatened. Vanessa's point of view. I strutted through the streets of the thick bush, even the trees paving the way straight up emitting a kind of fire. It's just so controllable. I tried, but it kept on giving me energy and physical strength. The breeze surrendered completely. They could barely understand what was happening. It's safe to say I had every damn creature under my arms. The leaves shivered as they fell. My physical body was still trying to understand that it was making me carried away, and boom. I fell into a ditch, staggering through as I finally halted at the bottom. At first, what I thought was some pile of dry leaves. But on the contrary, I never knew it was a pit, a dry ditch. I tried to go out, but all my efforts proved abortive. I reluctantly lowered myself as instantly my eyes surveyed the dryness of the ditch, scrupulously focusing on the staff that was already halfway outside my bag. I stood up as I moved towards it, holding it in my hands. A cold sensation is felt. This belongs to King Patrick, I concluded as my heart quickly flashed back to the early days of our love story. I was still holding the staff when tears slowly dropped from my eyes. My sweat was thick as blood. I quickly noticed something as I held the staff. It was quite shocking, and I was taken aback. "So it's been this staff all along." I nodded, trying to allow this quick realization to echo in my heart. "Wow," I exclaimed. The lion, the trees and the leaves, obedience to my voice and every other thing just gave me more evidence to go with. "Should I return this?" I asked innocently, but on a second thought I remembered the sound of his voice echoing in my ears. I just stood speechless, battling within my heart when, suddenly, an apple fell from a vertically gifted tree standing on top of the ditch. Still trying to grasp what just happened, a sharp pain was felt in my abdomen. I slowly lowered myself to the ground, trying to take a good posture to salvage the situation. Vanessa's point of view. I took a bite of the apple fruit as I quickly vomited a milky, creamy substance. I looked at it, but I didn't fully understand what it was. I could no longer feel myself again. My eyes went dizzy as I became completely fatigued, and in a short while, I slept off in the ditch. The next morning, that was when I started to understand my body system and the message it was trying to pass across. But what I didn't understand was how it happened. I asked myself, could it be just that very one night I and the Alpha King met that he deposited this seed without any of us even knowing? Coming to the realization that I was pregnant for the Alpha made my blood boil. It made me even more angry. I yelled in anger. How can a man who confessed and claims to love me all of a sudden completely turn his back against me to be with another woman? The sight of it alone leaves me with goosebumps all over my body. I was still swallowing my thoughts when 3 bunches of apples dropped from the tree. This was when I knew that the staff of strength and power actually cared about me and my child, as it constantly provided everything I needed right there in the ditch. I tried to come out of the ditch, but every effort proved abortive, so I decided to welcome it as a home into my life. I promised myself to stay strong and carry this pregnancy no matter what I face right there in this ditch. I will remain resilient, strong, and optimistic because I know a baby in the picture only means one thing, and that is... I was still muttering these words when the staff suddenly shone from the spot on which it was, sending rays that diffracted through an opening where I could get water for me and my unborn baby. I was so surprised. Just when I thought I would die of thirst, a great provision was made. This only gave me the push and assurance to never give up on myself, even if my one and only true love gave up on me. I laid down, slowly caressing my stomach as I could feel my baby kicking. I remembered my lovely parents immediately and everything they did for me, but unfortunately, I feel really sad to be separated from them. I never wanted to, but that was the only alternative I had to escape the death of heartbreak. I left without even informing my parents. I pray they are fine wherever they are. My poor parents. I should have let them know. I was just too fast to leave, but you won't blame me after all, because I did it to retain and keep my sanity, because the whole ordeal was really driving me insane. I whispered to myself as the leaves quickly formed a love shape that fell on me, spreading an aura of companionship. The following day, an unforgiving rain started to fall. It's torrential, battering the earth with its cold, relentless force. The entire place was shaking furiously as the striking sound of the rain hammered on me and my unborn baby. The wind howled, moaning and shaking the trees, leaving the leaves rustling in protest. The sky seemed dark and foreboding, the clouds pregnant with rain and thunder. Lightning disintegrated the sky, accompanied by the deep, ominous rumble of the entire atmosphere. The world seemed to be at war with itself. I quickly moved to a concealed part of the ditch where the rain wasn't rushing much. I threw my eyes around, surveying the ditch only to notice the gushing of water vehemently oozing from the other opening. My eyes were already rolling tiredly as I could barely stand. I softly located my bags and valuables, including the staff, when I noticed that the water from the opening was beginning to go above my head in a quest to fill up the ditch. The rain became even more torrential. Vanessa quickly made large holes in the walls of the ditch in an attempt to escape through it. Sweating profusely, she hurriedly started to climb, but the wind and angry clouds moaned vehemently. By this time, the water was already way past her feet. She persisted, promising herself not to look at the water, but to just keep moving. The ditch was quite long and a bit deep. She soon gets to the middle of the ditch, only to look down to see that the water had got almost half of the time. Frightened, she leveled up just at the peak of the ditch, and a hand reached out vehemently, pulling her out just in time. Who was that? It was a young man. He was an alpha, a king in the neighboring pack. He makes herbs and has some magical, mysterious powers. Thank you so much for saving my life. Vanessa appreciated, expressing her gratitude. The alpha's touch seems warm and gentle. She's moved to ask a question. You were just in time? How do you know I needed help so badly? She was curious to know. Her eyes rode round, surveying this mysterious alpha from head to toe. He smiles. It seems contagious and relaxing. That's what I am here for. Come sit down. You are heavily pregnant. You need to rest. I promise to answer each one of your questions. he assured her with his voice penetrating deep into Vanessa's ears. Her countenance looked receiving as well. All right. You've been interrogating me since we met. Let me ask you now. What happened? How come you fell into a ditch? Where do you live? And your baby too, he asked, his face expressing sincere concern for her and her baby. She burst out in tears. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk about it. Whenever I remember the whole experience, my blood boils. I weep bitterly. She revealed, as her face was flooded with thick tears, revealing how broken she was. The alpha is touched. His heart melts like candle wax. He draws nearer to her, cuddling her from behind. My name is Williams. I totally understand how you feel. Please, I believe a problem shared is half solved. If you could share it, we could solve it together. Okay. Please. He beckoned, lowering himself to his knees, showing how interested he was to know. Vanessa slowly raises her head, looking him straight into the eyes. I was rejected by my alpha, she said soberly. He groaned in my ears over and over again that he wasn't going to leave me. But he did, she revealed. We were so close that we even had a baby together without even knowing. She continued, still crying bitterly, whilst Alpha Williams tried consoling her softly. I was broken. I couldn't help it any longer. I had to leave and, as I speak to you, he's already married to another, she added. I'm so sorry about this. I honestly feel your pain. If I may ask, what do you intend to do? He asked, his eyes opened wide, eager to get a response. At the pack. During the late hours of the night, King Patrick is seen prowling through the dark. It was quite an unholy hour. He is with a gallon of petrol heading straight to Vanessa's parents' abode. Being a very possessive and powerful alpha that always gets what he wants, he decides to burn down the house of Vanessa's parents. As they have failed to provide me with my staff and their daughter Vanessa, a cheap thief, I will make sure they do not live to see tomorrow, he threatened, muttering these words as he tiptoed round the hut pouring petrol. Now, Vanessa, it is time to kiss your parents. Goodbye. No one messes with me and goes scot-free, he said in a calm, quiet tone, not wanting to wake up anyone. Boom! The hut exploded and that was it. Vanessa's point of view. I still feel something for him, but I can't go back to him. I guess he's married already. I know how possessive and dominant he can be. I confessed, pouring my heart, talking to Alpha Williams. He touched me with his soft palm as he said these words into my ears. Vanessa, you are a strong woman. You've proven how loyal you are to him, but his attitude towards you only shows that he cares less about you. We just met, but I can see the resilience and strength that resides inside of you. If you wouldn't mind, you can come stay in my pack for now. You're too special to be left outside, he suggested. I opted in almost immediately, considering the fact that I was homeless and needed a little covering over my head and my unborn baby. We stood to leave, then suddenly the staff of strength dropped on the floor, making a very irresistible, mysterious sound. Slowly we moved closer to getting the staff, but it seemed as though it wanted to say something. It gave off a strange aura that got me all roared up. We sat down on a log to understand the gestures better, only to raise our heads to behold a mysterious old man, clothed in white, with a pale face and a stunted stature. I withdrew back a little like Alpha Williams. We were both eager to know what was happening. Our eyes opened in complete astonishment. Conflicting thoughts bubbled through our hearts as we perceived a stench and strong aura emanating from the old man. He opens his mouth to spew. I stand for justice. A great disaster has just happened to the very ones you love dearly. Return to your pack and find out because I see blood roaming around you, he revealed as he disappeared into thin air. These words penetrated deep into my heart that I couldn't help it any longer. I moved to and fro completely restless as all of William's efforts to calm me down proved abortive. I wept as my heart split apart. I looked into the sky as I made these utterances. So even after everything I went through in that pack, the outright rejection and humiliation, they still had the mind to cause me even more harm. I can't take this anymore, I yelled as anger bubbled in my heart. I'm sorry, Vanessa. I mean, this is too much for you. I would suggest you relax. I mean, it's already evening and it's quite late. Tomorrow we will go find out what exactly happened. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted my safety, but I was still restless. I couldn't even close my eyes. I began to put thoughts together, but it kept making no sense. Just who? Who is after my life and family? Who? I need an answer. I screamed on top of my voice to the wind and the entire atmosphere provokingly waiting to get a response immediately. You have to calm down, Vanessa. I promise all will be fine. Trust me. He tried consoling me, but it didn't add up. He slowly cuddles me as he puts me to sleep in a quest to calm down my roaring nerves. At the pack. Alpha Patrick sat on his elevated throne feeling so fulfilled, he smiled softly, slowly surveying the entire pack with my eyes to see if any traces were left. But he could barely notice any. My aura seemed refreshing even if it carried the stench of cold blood. He didn't care because no one would mess with me and go scot-free. I'm the one and only dominant alpha that ever lives and rules over this amazing pack, he said to myself in self-appraisal, spreading my shoulders like eagle's wings. He lifted my head slowly, only to behold the moon goddess's messenger standing in front of me, looking all roared up like she was going to explode. First of all, she's not supposed to be here, but the moon. So what happened? He asked himself softly beneath his breath. Quickly, he ordered his right-hand beta and everyone around to excuse them immediately. Both eyes grew a little bit tense as she opened her mouth to speak, her voice thick and fiery. You have chosen to be stupid. You committed 2 offenses that I find guilty. First, you proceeded with marrying Cindy without your staff knowing fully well that this is an abomination and is highly punishable. He opened my eyes, withdrawing a little, displaying a surprised look. The lunar messenger continued. Secondly, you took innocent lives that did absolutely nothing to you. I promise you, if you continue on this route, rest assured that doom awaits you, and no one can take you out of it. Patrick burst out in laughter so hard in mockery of her well-rehearsed speech. What do we call this now? And by the way, who made you a judge over me? How dare you? The ruthless alpha fired back in anger. The lunar messenger objected. I owe you no words. Remember, a marriage without the covering of the moon powers is like a city without walks, and once you break the edge, the serpent will bite. Oh, spare me that nonsense. You know I have all the powers. That was why you conspired with Vanessa to steal my staff, because you know you're just a messenger from the Luna goddess. Patrick fired back. The messenger pressed further. I just delivered my message, but one more thing. I thought your relationship with Vanessa was all rosy from the start. What happened? What really transpired between both of you when you rejected her uprightly before the entire pack? You care to know, right, okay? That was then. Yes, we were in love, but not any longer. Not after finding out that she is a witch and a thief. I never wanted to attach myself to a witch. Marrying her would bring more harm to me and my pack. Alpha Patrick responded, owning his words with his full chest. He continued. She's just like her grandparents, a witch and a wizard. My late father spewed everything to me the night before the coronation. Vanessa's grandparents committed a lot of atrocities that they were cursed with, and after this revelation, I never wanted to be equally yoked with the lineage of curses. He revealed, looking so completely roared out, his chest bubbling in wrath. I think you need to sit down and look through this, so you don't end up making a very strong, costly decision that you might regret in the long run. The lunar messenger concluded as she disappeared into thin air. The next day, Vanessa quickly rose up vehemently equipping herself, heading straight on to the pack heavily pregnant, ready to make sure the entire pack pays for the catastrophe that had befallen her. She rose up early in the morning to begin her journey without informing Alpha Williams. She sees it as a personal battle, looking deep into her eyes, ready to face it head-on. Today, I will find out who wants my downfall if I perish, but I must get to the root of this matter. I yelled, beating my chest vehemently. My weak self slowly wore out, revealing a resilient, strong, focused woman ready to face anything head-on. Vanessa's point of view. I stormed into my room, anger burning hot in my chest. My parents gone, taken from me in a cruel act of violence by my former mate. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. No, I had to go back, confront him, demand justice. How could Alpha Patrick be this wicked? How could he set fire to my parents' hut, knowing fully well how it would damage me? Perhaps I never knew him as well as I thought I did. My hands found a small bag, in which I could pack a few of my things. With each item I threw into my bag, the anger within me grew stronger. Clothes, mementos, necessities, all packed in haste as I prepared to return to the pack I once called home. I knew Alpha William had been kind to me in his own way, but now I had a mission, a purpose that surpassed any comfort or security he provided. When I finished packing, I paused, casting a final glance around the room that had been my own. Even in the short time I'd spent here, the room already held memories, both joyful and painful, but now it was time to leave it behind. With a sad exhale, I turned away, my heart heavy with grief and fury. Walking out, I shut the door behind me, leaving behind the life I had known. I cautiously emerged from my room, the dimly lit hallway stretching out before me like a murky river. It was night already, and it had covered the world outside in darkness. This was as good a time as any for me to escape unseen. I moved with a quiet stealth, taking one foot in front of the other, each and every of my step measured and deliberate. Each sound, whether it be the distant murmur of voices or the echoing footsteps of guards on patrol, sent a jolt of fear into my body. From a distance, I could hear the howling of wolves. Perhaps Alpha William had gone out to hunt with his subjects. I kept myself glued to the shadows, pressing my body against the cool stone walls whenever I got the faintest hint of someone coming towards me. Suddenly, I heard voices drifting down the hallway, and I quickly ducked into a nearby alcove, my heart hammering in my chest as I held my breath, willing myself to remain unseen. The voices grew louder, and I kept myself hidden, trying to listen in. "His staff of power," one person was saying. "We got news from Alpha Patrick that it had been stolen." "What do you think, Alpha?" "Oh, Alpha William didn't go out to hunt," I thought. This just made my escape 10 times harder. I heard a great sigh before Alpha William spoke up. "Alpha Patrick is known to be very senile and biased in his judgment." He mused. "I do not think we should make this more important than it is. If he thinks he lost his staff, then he should look for it till he finds it. It is none of our business." A pause then. "As you wish, Alpha. We will send word to Alpha Patrick on the subject. Please do." I waited with held breath for Alpha William and the unknown person to pass. Once they were gone, their footsteps echoing down the corridor, I heaved a sigh of relief. The worst was over. Once the coast was clear, I resumed my silent journey, weaving my way through the dark corridors of the pack house. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I reached the grand entrance, the cool night air calling me forward like a siren's call. With a final glance over my shoulder, I slipped through the doorway and out into the inky blackness beyond, leaving behind the safety of the pack house. The surrounding of the pack house was as empty as the insides, for some reason. Only 2 lone sentries stood at the pillars of the pack house on both ends. There were no guards patrolling the grounds either. Where were they all? Hunting? I found a secluded corner outside the pack house, where the moonlight filtered through the dense canopy of trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground below. With a deep breath, I closed my eyes and focused on the primal energy moving through my body, calling the ancient wolf power that lay dormant within me. As I concentrated, a tingling sensation spread throughout my body, like 1,000 tiny sparks igniting my skin. I felt my bones shift and contort, muscles rippling beneath my flesh as my human form began to unravel. Fur sprouted from my skin, covering me in a soft, reddish silken coat as my limbs elongated and twisted, reshaping themselves into the sleek form of a wolf. With a final shudder, the transformation was complete. I opened my eyes, now keen and amber gold, and breathed in the crisp night air, the scent of pine and earth filling my nostrils. My senses were heightened now. I could smell every creature that crossed the grass below my paws, hear every sound around me, and feel everything with 10 times the effect. I nudged the bundle of clothes with my nose, picking it up delicately in my jaws, before turning and bounding off into the forest. The ground flew beneath my paws as I ran, the wind whipping through my fur and carrying the exhilarating scent of freedom. Branches and foliage blurred past me in dizzying colors of green and brown, the rhythm of my pounding heart matching the sound of my footsteps. As I ran, it hit me that I was no longer Vanessa, the timid Omega, who had been treated with scorn. I was now Vanessa the wolf, a creature of instinct and survival, and I would find revenge for my parents, no matter what it took me. And so I ran, deeper into the heart of the forest, my howls echoing through the night as I embraced the wildness that pulsed through my body. Soon I left the world of men behind. Vanessa's point of view. How long had I been running? I was not sure I could remember. However, I could not stop then. I had to keep going. I had to get to my former pack as soon as I could. My paws pounded on the forest floor as I darted around a tree and leapt over a fallen log. With each step, it felt as though I was pushing an invisible boundary, and my body screamed for me to stop. My body ached for rest, but I couldn't take that liberty. With sheer determination in my eyes, I focused my attention on the road ahead. My escape almost came to a crashing halt when I took my eyes off the path ahead and almost blindly slammed into a tree trunk. I recovered myself in a split second and continued the journey forward. The low-hanging branches scratched my face, clawing my fur as I raced through the forest, ducking low to avoid overhanging sticks that seemed to be placed there strategically for my downfall. My heart was thundering in my chest, pushing blood into my revenge-stricken head, and my bones felt as though it could no longer keep up with the pace. Focused intensely on the dark line ahead that was the border between both packs, I continued running relentlessly. "Vanessa, wait!" A voice boomed inside my head, crashing into my mind link. Something internally sends the alarm bells ringing as I caught sight of a stealthy black shape, leaping through the dense forest beside me. I turned to look more closely at the shape, but it had disappeared into a thick brush, mere feet beside me. Almost swallowed by the foliage, I lost focus for a moment, and my heart rate elevated. A tinge of panic hit me hard in the gut as the feeling of warning began to grow inside of me. Something was wrong. Something was terribly wrong. "Wait, Vanessa!" The voice roared in my head again. The forest seemed to close in around me, and the shadows continued to slither through the underbrush like sinister creatures. Fear coiled in the pit of my stomach, twisting and tightening with each passing moment. What was happening? Were these shadows a manifestation of my own paranoia, or something far more sinister? I quickened my pace, desperation lending strength to my limbs as I pushed myself onward. But the shadows kept pace, darting and weaving through the trees with an otherworldly grace that sent shivers down my spine. And then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the shadows vanished, leaving me alone in the eerie stillness of the forest. But the fear remained, gnawing at the edges of my mind like a hungry beast. The voice boomed in my head once more, urging me to slow down, to reconsider my reckless course of action. But anger surged within me, a fierce flame burning bright in the darkness of my grief. "No," I snarled back, my voice a guttural growl that echoed through the silent woods. "I will not be stopped. I will not rest until justice is served for my parents." The shadows closed in around me like vengeful spirits, their dark forms twisting and writhing as they hemmed me in from both sides. Panic surged through my veins, a primal instinct urging me to fight or flee. I tried to dodge past the moving shadows, but no matter how hard I tried to maneuver, they seemed to anticipate my every move. "Leave me alone," I shouted through my mind link, my voice ringing out into the silent night. "Vanessa, please cut the chase and return home to us," the voice pleaded. "I won't listen to you," I screamed. But the voice in my mind link remained persistent, its tone imploring me to stop and listen, to listen to its warning. Ignoring its pleas, I continued to run, my heart pounding in my chest as I darted between the trees, desperation lending speed to my steps. And then, with a sudden jolt, the shadows that had been following me collided with me from both sides, knocking me off balance and sending me tumbling to the forest floor. I rolled and tumbled, the rough ground tearing at my fur, scratching my skin and bruising my body. Twigs snapped beneath me, stones dug into my flesh, and I felt the sickening impact of my head striking a jagged rock. Pain exploded behind my eyes, white-hot and blinding, as darkness threatened to consume me. Struggling to regain my bearings, I pushed myself up on unsteady limbs, but the world spun dizzily around me. I'd morphed back into my human form now. "Whoa," I murmured, clutching my head. I could feel the warm stickiness of blood in my hair. Nausea churned in the pit of my stomach, and black spots danced at the edges of my vision. With a final effort, I tried to stand, but my legs betrayed me, buckling beneath the weight of my battered body. And then, with a soft whimper of defeat, I succumbed to the darkness, my consciousness slipping away as the world faded into oblivion. In the haze of unconsciousness, I felt myself being lifted from the forest floor, cradled in strong arms that offered a fleeting sense of safety and comfort. Voices murmured around me, but the words they spoke sounded like nothing but murmurs in my head. "Badly injured," I heard. "Should have been more careful." Desperately, I tried to lift my head, to make sense of the world around me, but it felt as though I was submerged in a pot of boiling soup. Every movement I made was sluggish and heavy. I whispered, "My parents." "You will be fine, Vanessa," a voice whispered to me. "Just stay still now." My voice trailed off with exhaustion. For a moment I fought against the darkness, straining to hold on to consciousness, but the effort was futile. With a weary sigh, I finally let go of the last shreds of my consciousness. Vanessa's point of view. Agony. Agony was the first thing I noticed the moment I became aware of my surroundings. The pain was hot and excruciating, so much so that it felt as though it was flowing through my very veins. My limbs felt like lead, and my blood pumped as sluggishly as melted steel. I heard the voices of people as they conversed around me, but I was too murky-headed to make out what was being said. My lips were dry and cracked, and my mouth felt drier than 100 dried corn husks. Where was I? Was I back in Alpha Williams' pack, or Alpha Patrick's pack? I could not tell, and it drove me crazy. I tried to move, but it felt like moving against the waves of a tsunami. My heartbeat rose dangerously as I struggled against my own limbs, trying to free myself. My eyelashes felt glued together, and it was with great effort that I pried them apart. The moment I opened my eyes, the first thing I sensed was the light. It was so bright that I was forced to shut my eyes again and open them more slowly. Walls painted gray, and a white roof where blinding white light had been embedded. Good, I thought. At least I was sane enough to pick up details like those. I moved my head slowly, taking it all in. My eyes fell on a figure in the corner. At first, my hazy vision thought it was a chair, but when it moved, I knew "You're awake," the figure said. I jerked, almost twisting my neck off. "What?" I stammered. "Who are you?" I stared at the person, waiting for an answer. "Hello, Vanessa. We probably have not met before, but my name is Dr. Elliot, and I am the pack doctor." I kept on staring at this man as questions raced through my head at top speed. What had happened during my run? The last thing I remembered was falling down what looked and felt like a cliff. And then, I remembered someone lifting me up with strong arms. After that, it was an endless stretch of bleakness for me. "Do you remember anything?" Dr. Elliot asked gently. "The Alpha said you suffered quite a blow to your head." "What Alpha?" I asked. However, the physician remained quiet. Instead, he asked again, "Do you remember anything, Vanessa?" Yes, I thought. I remembered everything. Pictures began to flash, memories from before, and I broke out into a cold sweat. "Mother," I stammered again. "My father." He must have seen the panic on my face as he struggled to reassure me. Yes, I heard the terrible news. You mustn't feel sad, Vanessa." "I mustn't feel sad?" I repeated, my wails increasing in intensity. "My parents are dead. Gone." "Oh, don't be scared," he rushed out. "You don't have to stress your mind thinking about that, about your parents' death, or avenging them. Just relax and focus on healing." He frowned. Your wounds are healing at a remarkably slow pace." I licked my lips uncomfortably. Even my tongue was so dry that I could not summon enough saliva to wet my lips. "Water," I wanted to say. Instead, it came out as an embarrassing croak. "Oh dear, you must be thirsty." He hurried away from me and moved to a table in the corner. I watched as he filled a glass with water, added a straw, and brought it back to me. Letting out another croak that was supposed to mean, "Thanks," I raised my head and he helped me up with his arm under my head. I sipped the liquid greedily, almost wishing the straw was gone so I could take bigger gulps. It felt as though I was taking the very first sip of water in days. The glass was almost empty when I finally took a deep breath and let the straw slide out of my mouth. I nodded my thanks to him, but no doubt it looked like I had an epileptic seizure. I was shaking so badly. "Oh, where?" I managed to croak out. "Where are you?" he clarified. "I'm sure you have lots of questions, Valerie, but don't worry. They will be answered soon enough." A knock from the door interrupted me as I opened my mouth to speak again. Turning towards it, Dr. Elliot called out, "Come in." The door creaked open, and Alpha William walked in, and that immediately answered 1,001 of my questions. My heart spiraled as I watched him. He was dressed in a white shirt, which had been pulled all the way up to the elbows, and a brown leather pair of trousers. His long auburn hair was tousled, and his eyes slightly swollen. To me, he looked like he had just pulled himself out from bed. Across the room, Alpha William stood, leaning against the doorframe and staring at me. He looked relaxed, seemingly in his element, an easy smile making his extraordinarily handsome face even more gorgeous. It should be a crime for a man to be that good-looking. Tall, rugged, he looked every inch the kind of man who was definitely at home with receiving a ton of attention. I'd forgotten just how well he could pull my gaze with his looks. There was an aura of confidence and power around him, and above all, I loved a man who was sure of himself. "I see our runaway Omega is finally awake," he noted. "How do you feel, Vanessa?" "I do not feel fine," I snapped, "and I will not feel fine until I get justice for my parents." I leaned forward on the bed, my eyes narrowing as I gave the Alpha the nastiest look I could muster. "Tell me," I snarled, "why did you stop me from escaping? Of what use am I in your pack? Release me, and let me avenge my parents." Dr. Elliot's hands settled on my shoulders. "Vanessa, you should lean back and rest, or you would injure." I brushed off the doctor's hands impatiently and faced Alpha William. "Answer me." Vanessa's point of view. Alpha William turned to Dr. Elliot and gave him a curt nod. "Doctor, I need a moment alone with Vanessa," he said firmly. "I will catch up with you later." Dr. Elliot bowed silently and exited the room, leaving Alpha William and me alone. As soon as the door closed, Alpha William's expression hardened, and he turned his attention to me. His eyes narrowed with concern. "Vanessa," he began, his voice tense with frustration, "what do you think you're doing by trying to escape?" I met his gaze defiantly, my jaw set with determination. "I'm trying to do what needs to be done," I replied sharply. "I need to avenge my parents' deaths. I cannot sit on my hands while their killer runs amok." Alpha William sighed heavily, running a hand through his tousled hair. "I understand your desire for justice, Vanessa," he said, his tone softer now, but running off like that was reckless. "You could have gotten yourself hurt." "I don't care," I insisted, my fists clenched at my sides. "I won't rest until I find Alpha Patrick and make him pay." Alpha William shook his head, his expression pained. "Vanessa, you can't just charge off without a plan," he insisted, stepping closer to me. "As long as you're under my roof, you're my responsibility, and I won't let you put yourself in harm's way." But I was beyond reasoning. Consumed by anger, I threw my covers aside and stood to my feet. The result was a blinding headache, but I didn't care. "I don't need your permission," I spat. "I'll do whatever it takes to find my parents' killer, with or without your help." With that, I stormed past him, my heart pounding with righteous fury. As I turned to storm out of the room, Alpha William's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, yanking me backwards. I stumbled, anger coursing through me as I whirled around to face him. Let go of me, I snarled, jerking against his grip. I don't need your protection. Alpha William's eyes blazed with intensity as he growled. Like I said, as long as you're under my roof, Vanessa, you're my responsibility. I won't let you endanger yourself just for revenge. I glared at him, my fists clenched at my sides. The longer I stay here doing nothing, the longer Alpha Patrick lives. I spat. I can't let him live any longer. I fought against Alpha William's grip, but he held on tight, his strength overpowering mine. I want to ask you a question, Vanessa, he said, his voice low and measured. If you answer, I'll let you go. I eyed him suspiciously, not trusting his words. I don't believe you'll let me go, I replied defiantly. Alpha William's lips curved into a sly smile. I promise, Vanessa. I'll let you go, he assured me. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. Fine, I conceded, and Alpha William released his grip on my arm. I stalked back to the bed and sat down, waiting for him to speak. Leaning against the doorframe, Alpha William's presence seemed to fill the room. Despite my anger, I couldn't help but notice how handsome he looked, but I quickly pushed those thoughts aside. I've heard news of Alpha Patrick's staff of power going missing around the time I found you in the ditch. Alpha William began, his gaze piercing. Do you know anything about it? My heart skipped a beat as he paused, and I realized the time had come for me to tell the truth. Clearing my throat nervously, I asked, Where are you heading with this, Alpha William? He fixed me with a steady gaze. Did you steal the staff, Vanessa? He asked, bluntly. I avoided his gaze, my mind racing as I searched for the right words. Finally, I looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Alpha William's silence hung heavy in the air, and his eyes narrowed in anger. You stole the staff, didn't you? I nodded, feeling the weight of his disappointment bearing down on me. Yes, I admitted. I took it when I was leaving Alpha Patrick's pack for good. Why? Alpha William demanded, his tone harsh and accusatory. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for his reaction. I wanted Alpha Patrick to pay for everything he did to me, I replied, my voice trembling with emotion. I wanted justice for myself, for my parents. And what better way to see to that revenge than stealing his most prized possession? Alpha William's jaw clenched, his fist tightening at his sides. You had no right to take matters into your own hands, he growled, his eyes flashing with anger. You've only made things worse. Tears welled up in my eyes as I spoke. And what would you have me do? Alpha Patrick rejected me in the presence of everyone gathered. He made me a laughingstock for all. He killed my parents. He killed your parents, and you went ahead to cause harm to my pack with your actions? Sorry isn't good enough, Alpha William snapped, his voice cold and unforgiving. You've endangered my entire pack with your reckless actions. Do you know what you have done? And what is it that I did that is so terrible? I snapped back. Tell me, Alpha William. Alpha Patrick will no doubt come looking for his staff. Alpha William explained, his eyes blazing with annoyance. And what will happen if he comes to my pack? His pack is stronger than mine. He has the army, the warriors, the supplies. If he knows I'm housing the person who stole his staff of power, what do you think he will do to me and my subjects? The impact of his words made me hang my head in slight shame. I am sorry, I murmured. I never knew it would affect you this way. Alpha William's expression softened slightly, but the anger still simmered beneath the surface. We need to figure out how to fix this mess, he said, his voice tinged with frustration. But first, you need to understand the consequences of your actions. I raised my head. What do you mean? Alpha William gave me a look of annoyance again. Then, before I knew what was going on, he turned and raced to the door. I have to lock you in here and prevent your escape, Vanessa, he declared. I have no choice. I sprang to my feet and rushed towards the door, but before I could prevent it, Alpha William had locked me inside. William's point of view. As I locked Vanessa's door, her furious protests echoed through the hallway. Let me out, Alpha William, she yelled, her voice thick with anger. I won't be locked up like some animal. I sighed heavily, ignoring her barrage of insults. Vanessa, I have to do this for your own safety and the safety of the pack, I replied firmly. my voice strained with frustration. "You're a coward," she spat, her words like daggers. "You're just afraid of what I might do." I clenched my fists at my sides, struggling to maintain my composure. "I'm doing what's necessary to protect my people," I insisted, my tone unwavering. But as her cries grew louder, doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. Was I doing the right thing by locking her up? Maybe there was another way to handle this situation. No, I reminded myself firmly. Vanessa is dangerous, wanted for theft and rebellion. Locking her up was the only option. As I turned to walk away from her door, I collided with Ramsey, my beta, who appeared out of breath and panicked. "Ramsey, what's wrong?" I asked, concern creeping into my voice. He took a moment to catch his breath before replying, "Alpha Patrick is at our border with an army. He's demanding an audience with you." My heart sank as I processed his words. Alpha Patrick's sudden appearance could only mean trouble. "What does he want?" I demanded, my mind racing with possibilities. Ramsey shook his head, his expression grave. "I'm not sure, but it can't be good," he replied. I nodded, my jaw set with determination. "Prepare the pack for a possible confrontation," I instructed him, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my chest. "We need to be ready for whatever comes our way." With that, I turned and headed towards the meeting room, my mind racing with plans and strategies. Whatever Alpha Patrick had in store for us, I would be ready to face it head-on. As I rushed out of the pack house, I was met with the sight of my men gathered in front of the pack house, their expressions grim and determined. They stood tall and resolute, staring at me as though waiting for instructions. With Ramsey at my side, I made my way to the head of the group, my heart pounding in my chest as we prepared to face Alpha Patrick and his army. As we reached the border of the pack, I saw the bulk of Alpha Patrick's army standing before us, a large force that seemed to stretch on for miles. At their head stood Alpha Patrick himself on a horse. He had long blonde hair that was piled at the top of his head in a messy bun. Tattoos dotted his arms and neck, and he was large and burly. He certainly looked like the kind of man capable of murder. Tension hung heavy in the air as our two packs faced off, the silence broken only by the rustle of the wind through the trees. Dirty looks were exchanged between Alpha Patrick and me, each of us sizing the other up, assessing our strengths and weaknesses. As I approached Alpha Patrick, I greeted him with a stiff voice. "Welcome to our pack, Alpha Patrick," I said, trying to maintain some kind of civility despite the tension between us. "I was informed by my beta Ramsey that you have..." But before I could finish my sentence, Alpha Patrick cut me off rudely. "I'm not here for pleasantries, William," he snapped, his voice dripping with irritation. "I'm here for what's rightfully mine." I raised an eyebrow, feigning ignorance. "And what, may I ask, is that?" I inquired, though I already knew the answer. Alpha Patrick's eyes narrowed, his patience wearing thin. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," he retorted, his voice sharp with annoyance. "You have something of mine, and I want it back." I pretended to be puzzled, though I knew exactly why he was here and what he wanted. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're referring to," I replied evenly, maintaining a straight face. "You might have to be clearer, Patrick." Alpha Patrick let out a frustrated sigh, his expression darkening. "Don't play dumb, William," he growled, his voice low and menacing. "You stole the staff of power from me, and now I want it back." I remained composed, refusing to show any sign of weakness. "I assure you, Alpha Patrick, I have no knowledge of any stolen property," I insisted, though guilt gnawed at the edges of my conscience. Alpha Patrick's eyes flashed with anger, and for a moment, I thought he might lunge at me, but instead he took a step back, his expression hardening into a mask of determination. "We'll see about that," he said ominously, his voice dripping with threat. "What are you insinuating, Patrick?" "A woman ran away from my pack, and she took something that belongs to me," he snapped. "She took my staff, and I intend to get it back." I shrugged. "That does not mean I have something to do with the staff." "You do," he roared. "You have something to do with it." Alpha Patrick dismounted from his horse and walked closer to me. "My spies saw the woman running towards your pack. They saw her cross the border into this place. You cannot have a strange wolf enter your border without your knowledge, Alpha William." Do not lie to me." I was starting to feel annoyed at this man's impetuous attitude. I watched as he slowly approached me, his gaze never leaving mine. "You have the woman, and I know it," he growled. "Produce her, give her to me, and we will act like all of this never happened." "Like I said before, I do not know of whom you speak," I replied coldly. "Leave my pack's borders, Alpha Patrick. I don't want anything to do with you." Alpha Patrick's jaw twitched, as though he was fighting a reaction. Then he smiled wickedly. "You asked for it." William's point of view. I watched warily as Alpha Patrick's smile twisted into a wicked grin, his eyes gleaming with malice. A sense of foreboding washed over me as I braced myself for whatever he had in store. "What do you mean?" I demanded, my voice edged with suspicion. But before Alpha Patrick could respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the ranks of his army. I turned to see a group of his men dragging a struggling figure forward, her hands bound behind her back. My heart sank as I recognized Vanessa, her face bruised and bloodied, her eyes filled with fear and defiance. "Vanessa!" I exclaimed, taking a step forward in alarm. But before I could reach her, Alpha Patrick stepped in front of me, blocking my path with an outstretched hand. Not so fast, William," he taunted, a malicious glint in his eyes. "It seems I've found what I've been looking for." I clenched my fists at my sides, my blood boiling with rage. "Let her go, Patrick," I growled, my voice low and dangerous. "She has nothing to do with this." Alpha Patrick's grin widened, his expression twisted with sadistic pleasure. "On the contrary, William," he sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "She has everything to do with this. Let her go," I snarled through gritted teeth. Alpha Patrick ignored me. With a flick of his wrist, he signaled his men to bring Vanessa forward. They shoved her roughly to the ground at his feet, causing her to cry out in pain. I felt a surge of fury wash over me as I knelt down beside her, my hands reaching out to gently lift her bruised face. "Vanessa, are you okay?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. She nodded weakly, her eyes flickering with gratitude. "I'm fine, Alpha William," she murmured in return, her voice barely above a whisper. But before I could say anything else, Alpha Patrick grabbed her roughly by the arm and yanked her to her feet. "You're coming with me, little wolf," he snarled. I watched as his grip tightened like iron around her wrist. I felt a surge of protectiveness rise up within me as I glared daggers at Alpha Patrick. "She's not going anywhere with you," I spat, my voice laced with venom. "You do not want to start a war, Patrick." But Alpha Patrick only laughed, the sound like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, but she is," he taunted, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. "And there's nothing you can do to stop me. I will start a war, if that is what it takes to have my staff of power back." Suddenly, I realized that I did not want Vanessa to leave with him. Suddenly, it felt as though she was pivotal to my life, even though she had only been around me for a short while. And I would be damned if I let Alpha Patrick take her away from me without a fight. As Alpha Patrick dragged Vanessa away, a surge of anger and resolve coursed through me like wildfire. Without hesitation, I signaled to my men to move forward, their faces set in grim determination as they prepared for battle. With a thunderous roar, our two pack armies collided, the sound of snarls and growls filling the air as claws clashed against claws. I fought with all my might, my muscles burning with exertion as I defended my pack and fought to rescue Vanessa from Alpha Patrick's clutches. It was not long before the battlefield became chaos. Nothing but violence and bloodshed as our two packs clashed tooth and nail. I could hear the cries of my men as they fought bravely against Alpha Patrick's own men. But amidst the chaos, my thoughts were consumed by one thing and one thing only: Vanessa. I searched desperately for her amidst the fray, my heart pounding with fear at the thought of losing her to Alpha Patrick's cruelty. And then, amidst the chaos, I caught sight of her, her form locked in a fierce struggle with Alpha Patrick himself. Without a second thought, I surged forward, my claws slashing through the air as I fought to reach her side. "Vanessa!" I roared. With a ferocious snarl, I leaped into the battle, my mind consumed with a single, unyielding purpose: to rescue Vanessa. Alpha Patrick spotted me. With a senile smile on his face, he flung Vanessa aside and she hit the ground with a shriek. He faced me squarely. "Come on, wolf boy." Fueled by fury, I leapt into the air towards him. Alpha Patrick and I clashed midair, our claws slashing through the air with a deadliness that even shocked the army around us. "You think you can defeat me, William?" Alpha Patrick snarled, his eyes ablaze with rage. "You're nothing but a weak, pathetic excuse for an alpha." I gritted my teeth against the onslaught of insults, my muscles burning with exertion as I fought to keep Alpha Patrick at bay. "You're the one who's weak, Patrick," I shot back, my voice laced with defiance. "You're nothing but a tyrant, a bully who preys on the weak." I spared a fleeting glance in Vanessa's direction, and I saw her still lying on the ground, not moving. "Vanessa," I whispered furiously. "Vanessa." My heart pounding with fear at the thought of her being caught in the crossfire, I yelled again. "Vanessa, run! Find a place to hide, and stay there until it's safe." Vanessa raised her head suddenly. She heard my last cry, and standing to her feet, she darted into the forest, towards the pack house and back to safety. I felt relief, knowing that she was safe for the moment. But before I could gather myself again, Alpha Patrick's enraged cry shattered the air, sending a shiver of dread down my spine. With a sudden, brutal force, Alpha Patrick seized me by the throat, his grip like a vice as he slammed my head against a nearby rock with a sickening thud. Stars exploded behind my eyes as pain erupted throughout my skull, the world spinning wildly as darkness crept into the edges of my vision. I fought desperately to stay conscious, my muscles straining against Alpha Patrick's iron grip as I struggled to break free. But it was no use. With a final vicious blow, Alpha Patrick delivered a devastating blow to my temple, sending me spiraling into darkness. Vanessa's point of view. I sank into the couch by the window of the room I was in. I swung my legs lazily, looking around for something that I could do. I had been locked up here for 5 days now, with nothing to do but read a boring old book. I was almost going crazy with the thought of revenge, concocting several ways through which I would make Alpha Patrick pay. This was 5 days since that battle in the forest, and I was sick of it. I picked up the book I was reading and tried to busy myself with reading it, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. I couldn't concentrate on the words, or do anything meaningful. I was restless and anxious, and I knew I would never truly find peace until I was out of this pack for good. "Alpha William is in a coma because of you," a tiny voice whispered in my ear, but I shook my head stubbornly. I had to leave, one way or another. I decided to step out of the room and take a stroll around the pack's garden. The garden was the only taste of nature I could get, apart from the woods, the only place I could walk barefoot and feel the grass under my feet, the only place I could spread my arms and allow the wind to play at my hair, the only place I could let my wolf run wild. Perhaps that would do something to ease my anxiety. I chewed my lower lip in thought, wondering how I would escape the guards that Alpha William had put at my door. Sighing in annoyance, I knew that trying to get past those guards would be next to impossible. I moved towards the door and peeked through the peephole. I could see the guards pacing the corridor beyond my room. I pursed my lips, thinking hard. The only way out was to climb through the window. But was I up to the task? I turned to the window and walked towards it, then experimentally pushed against it. To my utmost surprise, the glass of the window fell through and landed with a loud, shattering sound on the ground below. I waited for someone to hear the sound and come rushing to my room to see what was going on, but no such thing happened. After waiting for 5 minutes, I decided to give it a go. I placed 1 foot through the empty window, and then another, and soon I was sitting on the windowsill. Again, I waited for someone to find me there, but nobody did. Taking a deep breath, I leapt through the window, onto the grass below. I landed wolf-style on the ground, straight on my hands and feet. Jumping from that height would have killed any regular wolf or even a human, but I was so strong that it felt like a tiny jump for me. Rising to my feet, I brushed debris off my hands and began to walk towards the garden. I made sure to keep my back against the fence of the pack house, trying not to be seen. In a few moments, I got to the garden. In the garden was a stream that ran through one part, where I could dunk my feet and cool off if I wanted to. The garden covered a fair expanse of land behind the pack house, and it connected to a part of the forest and the border. I continued to walk until I was at the very end of the garden. There was a grove of trees there, right in front of the fairly large stream. I had never been here before. I walked through the grove of trees to the riverbank, where there was an extension or a walkway that stretched over a small part of the stream. The moment I got there, the fresh breeze of the stream washed over her. The moment I got to the stream, I crouched before it, placing my hands over the wet soil. I put my hands to my nose and took a whiff of the soil. It smelled so fresh and neat, and I could not think of anything more satisfying or calming to me. Then suddenly, I heard an intrusive noise and stopped abruptly. I looked behind me and saw that nobody was there. Against my better judgment, I turned back to the stream again, staring out to the other side. However, my sharp ears caught the noise again, which was coming to my left. I quickly stood up and dusted the soil from my hands, following the sound to where it was coming from. I turned the corner to my left and the noise increased as I drew nearer. I turned from the stream and went back into the thick of the gardens where I continued to stroll. The garden was vastly populated by white roses, which were my favorite flowers. I sniffed appreciatively as I walked through them and the scent calmed me. Soon, I was in the middle of the garden, and I sank my feet into the soft soil again. If I had to leave the pack eventually, and there was anything I would miss, it would be the great outdoors. My mind began to wander dangerously close to Alpha William again. Granted that we'd met in a ditch, which was the least romantic spot I could think of, I felt an almost unnatural pull towards him. However, I couldn't help but sense a kind of restraint from him, almost as though he was pushing me away. We should have gotten closer over the days since he saved me, but all we had done was annoy each other to death. There was too much tension between Alpha William and I had tried to keep the situation calm between us. But it was really frustrating, trying to stay away from someone whom fate kept bringing back to me one way or another. I quickly forced those thoughts out of my mind and removed my legs from the water angrily. It would change nothing to think about things I could not affect. As I proceeded to walk away, a shadow passed fleetingly behind me. I glanced back suddenly, thinking it was Alpha William. Alpha William? I called out hesitantly. All I heard was silence. I didn't see anybody behind me. I sighed and turned away, thinking it was a trick of the sun. But then the shadow passed again, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up in danger. I turned to my back with my fangs bared and my claws out, growling menacingly. But before I could do anything, something heavy hit me across the face. I could barely let out a scream of surprise before I crumpled to an unconscious heap on the grass. William's point of view. I slowly blinked my eyes open a few minutes later, or was it a few hours? Days? I could not be sure. I found myself engulfed in a haze of confusion and disorientation. The world around me swam in and out of focus, the edges of my vision blurred and indistinct. With a groan, I attempted to sit up, only to be met with a searing pain that radiated from the back of my skull. The room spun wildly as I struggled to regain my bearings, and my head throbbed with every movement. It felt as though 1,000 hammers were pounding relentlessly against my temples, each blow sending shockwaves of agony coursing through my battered body. With trembling hands, I reached up to gingerly touch the tender spot where Alpha Patrick had struck me, wincing as my fingers grazed over the tender bruise that had formed there. The skin was hot and swollen to the touch. As I surveyed my surroundings, the dimly lit room came into focus, revealing the familiar details of my own chamber. The walls were covered with different, and the flickering light of the torches casted long shadows across the stone floor. A sense of relief washed over me as I realized that I was back in the safety of my own pack house, surrounded by the familiar things in my chamber. Ramsay stood at my bedside, his expression filled with concern as he watched over me. Where am I? I croaked, my voice hoarse as I struggled to form coherent words. Ramsay's brow furrowed with worry as he leaned in closer, his voice laced with concern. You're back in your room, Alpha, he replied softly. You took quite a blow to the head. We were worried about you. I nodded weakly, my mind reeling with a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Despite the pain that pulsed through every fiber of my being, I knew that I had to stay strong for the sake of my pack. I'm glad you're all right, Alpha William, Ramsey said. And what happened to Alpha Patrick? I asked. Where did he go? Well, Alpha Patrick's warriors were on the verge of overpowering ours. In fact, I think he would have won the battle, if not for the reinforcement that came just in time. We were able to fight him off. Good, I replied, then continued savagely. As long as that bastard Patrick was defeated, then I am good as well. I suddenly spotted Ramsey shifting uncomfortably by my bedside, his expression grave and somber. I couldn't help but feel a sense of fear settle over me. I knew that something was amiss, that there was more to the situation than met the eye. But before I could voice my concerns, Ramsey spoke instead. Alpha William, there's something you need to know, he began, his gaze flickering nervously to the others gathered behind him. Something that happened after the battle. I nodded, my jaw clenched with determination. And Alpha Patrick? Is he... Ramsey hesitated for a moment, his eyes clouded with uncertainty. He was driven back, Alpha, like I said, he replied hesitantly. But he managed to retreat with his army intact. A surge of frustration coursed through me at the news. I had hoped that Alpha Patrick would be dealt a decisive blow, that his reign of terror would finally come to an end, but it seemed that fate had other plans. This won't be the last battle we will have with him, Ramsey, I declared, my voice tinged with bitterness. We'll deal with him later. But as I glanced around at the uneasy looks exchanged between Ramsey and the others, a sense of unease settled over me. I could sense that there was more to the story than they were letting on, that there was something they weren't telling me. What is it? I demanded, my tone sharp with urgency. What are you not telling me? Ramsey shifted uncomfortably again, his gaze flickering nervously to the others. Alpha William, you need to rest, he insisted, his voice tinged with concern. You've been through a lot, and you need to regain your strength. I shook my head, my resolve hardening with every passing moment. I'll rest later, I replied tersely. Tell me what's going on, Ramsey. Now. There was a tense silence as Ramsey exchanged a wary glance with the others, their expressions filled with apprehension. But finally, Ramsey relented, his voice low and hesitant. There's been a development, Alpha, he confessed, his words heavy with regret. Someone within this pack house escaped. We are guessing the person must have died, since there was glass underneath the window from which they fell off. My blood ran cold at the revelation, a sense of fear burning deep within my chest. Stop speaking in riddles, Ramsey. Tell me what happened in plain language. Ramsey chuckled nervously. You won't like this, Alpha. Speak. Who is it? I demanded, my voice sharp with anger. Who is the person? But before Ramsey could respond, I pushed myself to my feet, ignoring the pounding in my head as I faced him head-on. I need to know, Ramsey, I insisted, my voice echoing with authority. Tell me who it is, and we'll deal with them accordingly. It's Vanessa. As Ramsey uttered those alarming words, a cold shock rippled through me, freezing me in place. Vanessa, the thought echoed in my mind like a distant thunderclap. It can't be Vanessa, I protested, my voice barely above a whisper. I told her to run, to hide. But Ramsey only chuckled nervously, his eyes filled with regret. Alpha William, you've been in a coma for 5 days, he explained gently, his words landing like a heavy blow. A lot has happened in that time. 5 days. The realization hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind from my lungs. 5 days of darkness, of unconsciousness, while chaos reigned outside these walls. And in that time, anything could have happened. No, I whispered, shaking my head in disbelief. No, it can't be true. William's point of view. Ramsey's words hung heavy in the air. And despite my protests, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling in my gut. A wave of apprehension surged through me as I struggled to come to terms with the uncertainty. This cannot be true, I declared. And without hesitation, I darted to the door and rushed out, heading for Vanessa's room. I ignored Ramsey's cries of protest that followed me from behind. The halls that greeted me hit me with a waft of constrained air. The walls felt tight, and the statues that lined the corridor made the entire space congested. I walked briskly past the on-duty packhouse workers, the dusters that wiped the statues and vases, the butlers that went to and fro, checking each room and inspecting the jobs of the cleaners. And they all gawked at me like they were seeing a ghost. My hair was still tousled and dirty from the battle, and my shirt was very red with my blood and Patrick's, with my fingers now thick with dried blood that made it look as though they were swollen. And even I succumbed to the fact that I wasn't a very nice sight to see. But I wasn't concerned about my appearance at the moment, as I was more worried about Vanessa's disappearance. My eyes darted to the door of Vanessa's room. A butler walked out of it, holding a broom and a bucket. "You?" I called as he walked past. The old man stopped and turned slowly towards me in response. He bowed low. "Yes, Alpha William," he replied, with his head down. But when he raised himself up and saw me, his brows furrowed slightly, yet still respectfully. "Shall I be of assistance with a change of clothes?" he asked, with his eyes moving to my dirty clothes. "You appear scruffy." I waved my hand impatiently. "That is not the point." "What is it then, Alpha?" I frowned and turned to the door. "Do you know where she is?" "Well, sir," he cleared his throat. "I must apologize, but we haven't seen your guest as of late," he explained. "The last time she was seen was when she was introduced to the room some 5 nights ago." And as the words hit my ears, I could feel my heart slice in two. I pushed past the butler and burst into the room before I could even think of moving my feet. It was as though I was pushed by my emotions rather than thoughts. The butler behind me was startled, and his hands went to his face. "Alpha William," he yelled. "You are still too weak to move around. You haven't seen her since?" I yelled loud, with my eyes darting everywhere. The butler followed me into the room as I looked around. His eyes weren't calm anymore, and his face quivered. I knew he was surprised, as he had never seen me angry. No, sir," he stammered. "We assumed she was still sleeping when she hadn't come up," he explained. "Same way we thought you were still recuperating from the battle when you yourself hadn't appeared for breakfast." My eyes shot around the room wildly. The room was more or less the same way I'd found it when I'd come in here to lock her up. The woman's clothes were still littered everywhere, though I saw that the butler had made an effort to tidy up a little. The window had been smashed in. I could see that much. The smashed window had been temporarily fixed with boards and nails, and the glass had been swept away. The other window above the bed had been opened to let in air, and the entire room smelled strongly of pressed roses. The smell of roses killed Vanessa's natural scent, the one thing that could have assured me, the one thing that I still had of her. The room felt smaller now, almost like it was closing in. In truth, everything was closing in on me. I was being constricted as well. The air hung heavy, almost like it was being pulled down by weights. I just couldn't breathe, no matter how hard I tried. My head rang dizzy, my thoughts spun, my heart ached. My thoughts closed in too, and they hit hard at my conscience, digging into my heart like merciless claws at soft flesh. They were hurting me more than wolfsbane or silver ever could hurt a werewolf. The voices in my head yelled at me, screaming and gnashing their teeth, asking me why I had to lock Vanessa up, when she had only been trying to protect herself from the worst of this world. I had been too callous, too cold, too self-absorbed, with no concern for anyone else. I was only concerned if they followed the rules or not. Finally, I snapped out from my self-induced haze and looked around again. The only other thing I saw was a few plates of food and female clothing everywhere, and it made the room appear worse than how I looked. The only thing missing in the room was the woman, Vanessa, and the sight of the room that was empty without her made my heart ache like never before. I was surprised. When did she begin to mean so much to me? "Alpha William?" came a concerned voice. I turned to see Ramsay standing there, staring at me with worry etched into his eyes. He took a tentative step forward, as though anxious not to trigger me again. "I told you she was gone," he murmured. "We have not seen her for almost a day now." "Find her," I roared with anger. "She isn't an egg or a needle, is she? She is a werewolf." Werewolves do not get lost that easily. Put your senses to work and find her. Beta Ramsey gave me another look that I thought was really close to pity. Then he nodded and bowed at me again. I will do that, Alpha. He turned and walked out, leaving me to my raging emotions. Vanessa's point of view. When my consciousness returned, the first thing I felt was weakness, all over. My eyes fluttered open to blinding light, seeping through the cloth that was tied over my eyes. Wincing against the brightness, I twisted and realized I was bound, sitting on a very uncomfortable wooden chair. Something from the chair, a nail, a splinter, dug into my back and behind, causing me to flinch in pain even more. Thirst dried my throat up, my body ached, and fear clung to me like a second skin. A very unfamiliar world greeted me through a small tear in the piece of cloth over my eyes. Shadows danced in the light, and all I could see were dark corners and even darker objects. Or people? I had no idea. I strained to gather any clues about where I was, but the limited view offered no solace. The creak of a door opening to my left jolted me. Quickly, I let my head fall to my chest, feigning unconsciousness. I couldn't let them know I was awake. I was not sure of what they might do if they realized I was awake. Definitely, I knew these were enemies. Short, quick footsteps approached, and every single one echoed in the hollow space. I tried to control my breath, but the thudding of my heart seemed to drown out every other sound. Through the tear in the bag, I glimpsed even more dark figures, their forms vague and terrorizing. The footsteps halted in front of me. A voice, too familiar, pierced the silence. You can quit pretending, Vanessa. I know you're awake. My pulse quickened, but I stayed perfectly still, pretending as though I was still unconscious. The voice persisted, dripping with disdain. I hate lies and pretense, Vanessa. Quit the act and raise your head. I am not here to play these games with you. Still, I remained perfectly in one position, my heart pounding in my ears, drowning out the voice that scared me so much. The unknown figure chuckled, and I heard his footsteps as he moved closer. My heartbeat raced even more. Do you want me to hurt you, Vanessa? The voice asked. If you do not want me to hurt you, then you will do exactly as I say. Understood? A loud groan and the creak of fabric reached my ears, and suddenly, the person crouched before me. My panic increased as a hand slipped beneath my chin, lifting my head against my will. Then an involuntary gasp escaped my lips, and I could almost see my captor smiling. The man chuckled, the sound making me tremble with fear. I had never heard anything like it before. Your lies have a distinct smell, Vanessa, he murmured, running very cold fingers up and down my chin. I can usually sense it from a far distance. Even when you were with me, I could sense your fear then, as I can sense it now. In fact, I dare say I know you more than you know yourself, Vanessa. His words hung in the air, and my heart took a deep dive to the soles of my feet. Then, without warning, he reached out and lifted the cloth from over my head. The blinding light and unfamiliar surroundings became clear, exposing me to the reality of the situation I found myself in. The harsh glare of overhead lights revealed what looked to me like a basement or a large underground room. There were several stacked crates in several different corners of the large room, and thick air riddled with dust motes hung still around the warehouse as well. There was a harsh, almost suffocating scent that clung to every surface, filling my lungs up. It smelled like wet dogs, like werewolves who had just undergone morphing. As though my thoughts had conjured them up, I saw werewolves emerge from all the dark corners of the room. They were at least 10, if I was counting right. And they all had their eyes on me, fangs bared and ready to inflict damage. As my eyes moved around, staring at my environment, they came to rest on the man that was my captor. Alpha Patrick, I declared in a whisper. I should have known. Alpha Patrick smiled like the devil that he was. Hello, Vanessa. I am Dot. Deeply sorry for this terrible room that my warriors decided to lock you up in. Servants, you know how they can be. Trust me, you'd be moved to someplace better soon. What am I doing here? I demanded, my voice echoing against the cold, empty walls. Alpha Patrick's calm smile mocked my frustration. You're exactly where you belong, Vanessa. I struggled against the wooden chair in a futile attempt to break free. Let me go, you bastard. His demeanor remained collected, as if my protests were mere background noise. Calm down, Vanessa. Refusing his command, I continued to struggle, my voice rising in a desperate plea for release. Let me go, or Alpha William will find me, and he'll make you pay. Alpha Patrick's sneering laughter filled the warehouse. Your precious Alpha William isn't here to save you, Vanessa. You're on your own now. The realization hit me in one destabilizing wave, and I halted my struggles. Fear and urgency welled up as I met Alpha Patrick's gaze. What have you done to Alpha William? His smile widened as he sensed my despair. He waved a dismissive hand around. Oh, not to worry about him for now. Anger and fear collided within me, and I spat back. You're a monster, Alpha Patrick. He chuckled, seemingly pleased by my reaction. Call me what you want, Vanessa. It won't change a thing. Beast, I whispered hoarsely. You mafia scum. Tell me where he is. Tell me what you did to him. Alpha Patrick leaned in, his voice a low, taunting whisper. You're all alone now, Vanessa. Alpha William can't save you. You better get used to the idea. I glared at him, defiance flickering within my fear. What do you want from me? His sneer widened. Oh, we're just getting started, Vanessa. You're going to play a crucial role in our little game, whether you like it or not. Cindy's point of view. I walked angrily into the room, banging the door so hard that the harsh sound it made could deafen anyone close by or even far away. My actions were evidence that there was something wrong. The moment I got into my room, I kept pacing up and about with my hands intertwined in each other. A sign that I wasn't just angry, but also anxious. Why did she have to make her whereabouts easily known to him? Couldn't she stay hidden forever? I grumbled in annoyance and sheer irritation. Just when I had thought that luck had shined on me for the Alpha King Patrick to choose me as his mate, Vanessa had to waltz in and ruin everything again, just like she had done at first. Gosh, I could feel myself already hating her so much that I yearned to crush her so badly. Of course, it was every woman's dream to be the mate of one of the strongest and dominant Alpha Kings in all wolf packs. The time I had heard the reason why our mating ceremony couldn't hold, I felt so pained to the core. I tried my very best not to yell like a lunatic. Stealing the staff wasn't enough for her, and now she had to get captured. Just what on earth was she planning? I thought deeply. If she is here, it is not entirely a bad idea, my inner wolf said to me. Shut up, you know nothing. I stopped to shut her up. Come on, Cindy, he persisted. You know how much the Alpha King hates Vanessa, which is why he chose you. All you have to do is pray, or probably find a way to make sure that he gets his staff from her and get rid of her immediately. Then you both can have your mating ceremony, he said to me, with all of his words sinking deeply into my head. Truly, I had not thought of this. I was too overwhelmed by my anger to even think of a possible solution. Slowly, I walked over to the bed and sat down. Yet, despite what my inner wolf had said to me as a piece of advice, I found a part of me so hesitant to believe. There wasn't anything too impossible to happen. Just like I had unexpectedly and impossibly been chosen as his mate. What if something goes on between the both of them? I began. You know, I heard that she's a witch just like her grandparents were. What if she bewitches him with her beauty? I found myself asking my inner wolf. Of course she's a beauty. However, she doesn't need to bewitch the Alpha King to be his. I heard an unfamiliar voice coming from my room, and I looked up immediately. Oh my God. I jumped in fear at the sight of the Luna goddess standing right in front of me. Her white garment with glittering diamond stones almost blinded my eyes. I could see the long and standing moonstaff she held in her hands too. Why was she suddenly in my room? It was rare of her to show herself to just anyone when she could send her messengers. I stuttered, the right words failing me. I could literally feel myself shaking at the mere sight of her. I feel so much pity for you, my child. You had to be fixed in a crossfire, she began to say with her eyes heavily fixed on me. You need not fool yourself any longer. You and Patrick were never destined to be mates. He is confused just as you are. What do you mean? What are you trying to say? I choked. I suddenly began to feel my palms all sweaty. Stay away from Patrick and Vanessa's child. He is a dead end for you. Whatever evil thoughts you're beginning to harbor against Vanessa, I'd advise you to put a stop to it quickly, she said, her eyes still fixed on me. I wasn't a fool not to understand that she was telling me to back off from the Alpha King Patrick and Vanessa, but was that her job? Hell yeah. I understand she's a goddess, a Luna goddess, but was she the one to detect who the Alpha King was going to marry? All of these thoughts kept rolling in my head, but I couldn't talk. All I did was let her say whatever she had to say, and eventually vanish into thin air. William's point of view. I kept walking up and going to my house, as I had been doing for so long since I woke up. I kept having hope that I was going to find Vanessa somewhere, maybe if I searched deeper. However, it was almost ages, and there was still no sign of her. At least not yet. You know you should be in bed, resting. Dr. Elliot's voice boomed along the hallway the moment I stepped in. I was on my way back to the room Vanessa had been in finally before she disappeared. At this stage, there's nothing worth resting, I said, despite feeling the pain rise up again at the same place Alpha King Patrick had hurt me. Are you implying that your health is no longer important? He asked, and I stopped in my tracks. Was that what I meant? I began to wonder. If that was it, then something was definitely wrong with me. Why did Vanessa matter this much to me? Especially at this point when she was miserable. Just to think, I wasn't even worried about whether I was going to die from neglecting my health. Did Ramsey call you here because I never called you? I asked immediately, changing the topic. I heard Dr. Elliot let out a sigh while he followed my steps into the room. No one called me. I came on my own. He responded. With your belongings? I chuckled nervously. You're too old for this lie, I said, but he didn't say anything. When we got into the room, I began to walk around. Probably I was going insane, but I felt an urgent need to keep searching everywhere. I was equally feeling so weak to the core. As an alpha, that was the first time in my life. What do you propose? I found myself asking Dr. Elliot. I had now stopped at the window, which might have helped in her disappearance. But before he could respond, the door slammed open, leaving both of us to turn immediately. What is it, Peniel? I asked my guard who was at the door, panting. I knew something had gone wrong. Alpha, he panted. We found her. William's point of view. I didn't just walk as fast as they might have expected me to. Instead, I ran with all my might down to where they said they had found her. And finally, we got to the destination. My garden. I found myself let out. This was one of my favorite spots in my park house. Why was I brought here? Was she really here? How did she even get to find out about this place? Immediately, I turned towards Peniel, Ramsey, and the other guards standing right there with me, just a few meters away. Where is she? I asked, turning around, searching for her. I thought you said you had found her. I said, my eyes heavily fixed on Peniel with expectations after I didn't seem to find Vanessa anywhere around. They all looked down immediately. The expression they wore on their faces indicated sadness, or probably disappointment. Slowly, I walked forward, closer to them, standing right in front of Peniel, who was already shaking in fear. Have you suddenly gone deaf? I asked him in particular, dragging him by the collar of his shirt. Alpha, Ramsey tried to touch me, but I pushed him away so hard, not caring if he fell to the ground or not. Didn't you say to me that you'd found her? Well, here we are, but I can't find her anywhere. So where the hell is she? I thundered. Peniel began to sweat profusely because I could literally see each drop of sweat trickling down to his shirt. I knew my guards like I knew the palms of my hands. If Peniel was shaken to that extent, then it meant that something was wrong. Was it false information? Well, if that was it, why did he have to give me false information? Did they think all of this was a joke to me? I wondered, feeling a reeling pain and anger in my chest. If you don't give me a response, Peniel, I swear to God I'll burn you to the ground. I growled at him, feeling the glow in my eyes already. But all Peniel did was whimper in fear. Peniel happened to be our youngest guard. So if his baby-like actions irritated you, it was all because he was still the youngest who had great fear of me and certain other creatures. Angrily, I dragged him up by the throat, choking him while he tried to stop me, but all his efforts were futile. "William!" I could hear Dr. Elliot yelled out my name, but I hoped he had better not dare move closer to me because on the stage I was in, I could burn down a whole house. "Put him down now," he thundered, but I was too furious to listen to him or even anyone. "Where the hell is she?" I thundered again, throwing Peniel so hard to the ground that he yelled in pain. I didn't care if he might have hit his body so hard against any rock or object. I took another step closer to him because I wasn't done just yet. Before I could get to him, though, Ramsey quickly stood in my way. "Get out now," I growled. "I beg you to stop now, Alpha. This is not you," he said, regardless of my warnings. "What power do you think you have to suddenly stand in my way, Ramsey?" I found myself chuckling. "None. But I want you to calm down and listen to me." What Peniel meant was that we might have an idea where she is, Ramsey explained quickly. I bet he knew what my next dangerous step was. "I don't need you to have an idea. I need you to tell me where she is." I snarled and darted quickly towards Peniel, claws out ready to draw out his blood. "Alpha Patrick has her," Ramsey was quick to say, making my hands quickly hang in midair the moment I heard him. Slowly, I withdrew and took myself away from Peniel, walking towards Ramsey. How? How did he get in here? I found myself asking, feeling sober instantly. My mind quickly ran to the possibility of the immense pain he might have caused her since he has her now. How did he get her? Weren't you all supposed to protect her? I questioned, looking from one person to another. We trailed her scent from the room, which landed us here in the garden. She had actually broken the window, probably as an escape route out, because we had locked her in for those 5 days, he said. I didn't need to ask why he thought so, because it was like Vanessa. She never loved being caged, and when we looked around, we got the scent of another who had probably been hiding in the shadows without her knowing. Ramsey explained. And? I quickly asked. I was so eager to know the rest. It happens to be one of Alpha Patrick's spies, he finally said, and my heart dropped. I staggered, my knees failing me. Alpha, Ramsey was quick enough to get a hold of me and put me to sit on the bench right there in the garden. How were they able to get in? How could they easily break into our walks without any one of you finding out and detecting their motive? I questioned, but my eyes were not fixed on anyone. For the same reason, I had been trying to find out why I felt so affected at Vanessa's disappearance. I could still stop the immense pain that latched on to me. What do you want us to do now, Alpha? I heard Ramsey's voice. Tell us, and we will definitely get her back, he said. I didn't need to think too much about what it was I had to do to get her back, because I knew. There was no way I would let Patrick have her without a fight. Call for reinforcement. We're going to attack, I said immediately. No, you won't. We suddenly heard, and immediately, I raised my head to see who had objected. Step back, Ramsey ordered immediately, growling at the old man who was standing a few meters in front of us. No, wait, I stopped them from attacking. I know him, I said to their amazement. And of course I did. He was the same old man who had appeared to Vanessa in the forest, informing her about the impending danger at her place. William's point of view. I stared at the old man in confusion. Besides what he had said that shocked me, I observed he was looking different from the last time I had seen him. His pale face was no more. Instead, his skin was as smooth as that of a baby. His eyes were beautiful, glowing silver, while his hair was at his neck length, equally black as midnight. Definitely he looked more handsome, something that seemed to be a crime for an old man like him. I walked closer to him, despite the warning growls I got from my guards. Even if I had said I knew him, they still didn't trust him, and I understood why. This was someone who just waltzed in from nowhere in particular. How did he get into the garden? Clearly no one had felt his presence around, so he was deemed to be questioned. What are you doing here? Who allowed you in? I asked him as I swallowed hard. There was a need to be careful because the look in his eyes spelled danger. No one allowed me in because I could get into wherever I chose to. I have the power to do so, he said, maintaining his stoic expression. When I was a few meters closer to him, I smelled that something was wrong. He didn't come here to pass a joyful message, whoever he was. "Who are you?" I found myself asking him, unable to stop myself because that wasn't the question I had intended to ask first. It came out unexpectedly. For a while, everywhere went as silent as a graveyard. Nothing could be heard, except the heartbeat of everyone. I didn't move my eyes away from him. They were still fixed on him just like he was fixed on mine. Yes, I was waiting for him to give me a response. The time to know who I am hasn't arrived yet. What matters now is that you listen to what I have to say to you and do just as you have been told. He finally answered. "What is it you have to say?" "What were you trying to imply when you said I wouldn't attack Alpha Patrick?" I asked, when I suddenly remembered the first statement he made to announce his presence. "And how the hell does he know who Alpha Patrick is?" Ramsey growled, and I could sense the impatience growing inside of him. "Just who are you, old man?" he snarled, almost like he wanted to attack. "I'd advise you to control your beta or I'll control him for you," the old man warned. And immediately, I saw his eyes flash red. Wait, what was that? Was he an alpha too? Just who on earth was this man? I found myself wondering all of a sudden, curiosity taking me to another level. I took my steps back to Ramsey, holding him down. "Was that a threat?" I asked the old man. "Whatever it is, you see it as," he answered, looking away from Ramsey, with his eyes finally resting on me. I was completely short of words. There was something not just right about this man. He seemed to have a certain power over me. Or was it because I had met him before? I should be attacking right now, yet I couldn't even make a move because he seemed to have something I wanted. "William," he called back my attention. "Patrick has set a trap for you. He knows you'll be coming, and he's waiting for you," he relayed. "So, what are you insinuating?" I asked him, my heart suddenly beating faster. "You can't save Vanessa now, even if he's holding her captive. You can't. She's not even in danger," he said, shocking the wits out of me. "What? So, you want me to leave her there to die?" I asked, staring at him in bewilderment. Just the thought of Vanessa alone with Patrick made me fear. No, I wasn't afraid that he would kill her. For some weird reason, I was afraid of the fact that he could touch her again. What if she became vulnerable and fell back in love with him? Those thoughts alone sprang up jealousy inside of me. "Do you really think Patrick is going to kill her?" he asked, his voice interrupting my thoughts. And I swear his question was meant to mock my stupidity, or, better still, let me rephrase. He said, and slowly began to move forward, stopping the moment he got closer to me. "Do you think he is capable of killing Vanessa?" He questioned, and I could literally feel his breath under mine. His question made me suddenly remember the Patrick staff in Vanessa's possession, not with the staff already in his possession, which I'm already sure he has gotten from her, I said, and watched him burst into a loud, echoing laughter. What was funny, I wondered. Immediately he stepped back to his previous position. "You underestimate an Omega as Vanessa?" he roared, staring deep into my eyes, making me see the anger in his eyes. "I don't underestimate her," I said loudly, hoping he could hear me and stay calm. Surely none of this had to do with underestimating Vanessa. Or did it? Even if she had suddenly gained her powers, there was no way she could easily defeat an Alpha King as strong and callous as Patrick. It wasn't up to a minute, and everywhere went as calm as it was before. "If you attack now, doom awaits you. Stay here and regain your strength, because for me, you could get beaten by one of your guards in his state." He whispered to me and began to walk out. Again, he was mocking me. I quickly turned to him, although not taking any step to stop him. "When will be the right time to attack?" I asked, stopping him in his tracks. "When the time comes, you'll know," he said without turning towards me, and then he disappeared into thin air. I knew it. That man was up to no good. I recognized Ramsey's voice. "Please, don't tell me you're going to listen to everything he said," he asked, but I was too lost to respond. "Ramsey, send our spies to Alpha Patrick's. Make sure they don't get caught, I said, my eyes still fixed in the direction the old man had disappeared. Vanessa's point of view. Vanessa, I heard the familiar voice call out to me, and I walked towards the direction I heard the voice. Mom? I called out as the total darkness blinded my eyes. That was the only name that could come into my head. I continued using my hands on the walls and carefully dumping my feet on the floor to find the perfect spot to thread on. Vanessa, I heard my mother call again. Despite being careful, walking in darkness, trying to find my way out of the place I assumed to be a tunnel or cave, I was in a hurry to go save my family. I didn't care if there was any harm waiting for me right where they were. While I walked, it wasn't long before I began to see light rising up in front of me, indicating to me that I was closer than I thought. But then, I could no longer hear the voice of my mother calling me. Mom, I yelled, trying to see if she would respond back. But sadly, there was nothing. So I began to run faster, so I could get to the light which was at the end of the tunnel. Vanessa, my child. I suddenly heard my mom response, and I felt my heart gladdened as it meant she was okay. Her voice suddenly gave me the energy to run faster, even if I kept falling to the ground from time to time as I ran. Mom! I yelled again, my hands stretched out this time in a bid to reach her in the light, which I saw was slowly dimming. Unfortunately, before I could get to her, the light went off immediately, leaving me behind in total darkness. Mom! I cried out, as I felt a force pushing me so hard to the ground. No! I opened my eyes with force immediately, feeling the years trickling down my cheeks. Oh God. I sighed in relief the moment I realized it was all a dream, even if it was a bad one. However, I felt a part of me asking why I was having such a dream. My parents were already dead, as far as I knew. Or, was I thinking wrongly? Was the dream trying to pass me a message? Irritated at the fact that I wasn't getting any response, I tried to sit up from the bed, but the moment I tried, my efforts were futile. I felt a sudden force draw me back to the bed. Curse you, Patrick. I groaned with an immense amount of hatred as I suddenly remembered that I was still chained to the bed. I think you should be careful with your words. I heard immediately, the voice startling me. I quickly raised my head to see who it was. Cindy? I asked rather than say. Thankfully, the room was brighter than the last time I had been awake. Are you surprised to see me? She questioned me, wearing a smirk on her face. Truth be told, I didn't even know how I felt at that moment. We never had a close relationship during the time I lived here, and even if she had been the one who Patrick chose over me, I didn't know why I couldn't hate her one bit. Did she have a hand in Patrick losing his love for me? I thought. Maybe I am? Yes, I managed to answer. Slowly, she took steps closer to me, making me wonder what it was she wanted to do to me. Why was she even here in the first place? Shouldn't she be having a wonderful time with her mate? When she eventually got to me, she sat right on the bed I was in. I found myself suddenly curious to know what it was she wanted to say, or perhaps do to me. Right at that moment, I didn't trust her. I watched her eyes move down my body, from my face down to my leg. Then, I saw her eyes finally resting on my belly. Oh God, she was the last person in the pack I wanted to know about my pregnancy. Don't you think your belly is too big for someone who claims to be the perfect match for the alpha? She questioned, still not shifting her eyes away from my belly. Why are you here? I heard myself growl. Oh, she chuckled. You've finally gotten your wolf back. Such a pity. I thought you'd come back here the same weak-ass Omega you've always been, she said, her eyes moving up to me, passing me a smirk again. Don't you dare kid yourself into thinking I love where I am now. I said to her, feeling every bit of pain from the hurtful words she spilled. However, I also hoped she would get the message and quit bothering me because, as it stood at that moment, the only thing I wanted was to free myself. Of course you'd want to pretend. That is one of the things I was sure of, Cindy said to me, finally standing up, leaving the bedside. Shh, I scoffed. If only she knew what I had on my mind. Look, I really don't have the time to convince you, but can you ask that maid of yours to free me from here? I have other important things to plan, I said to her, struggling with the chains. And what makes you think I would do that? She asked. Come on, Vanessa, don't be stupid. She laughed. Don't you see me as a threat? I asked immediately. You have what belongs to him, she said, and I could feel that she was ignoring my initial question. Give him what you stole from him, and he'll let you go. You'll go back to being a free Omega, she said again. Never, I spat. I thought as much. She scoffed, and I watched her walk back to the door. She stopped the minute she got to the door and turned to look back at me. It better be that you're not pregnant, she said, and with that she shut the door back. Oh, crap. Patrick's point of view. The moment I got into my room, I quickly shut the door. Anger moved right inside of me, and I knew if I stayed right there at the border with my warriors, it was going to get brutal. Why wasn't anything happening yet? What's keeping them so long? Have they changed their course of attack? I pondered on it as I paced up and about the room. I really hated it when things didn't go according to plan. Let me guess, I heard the voice while pacing up and about in my room. Then I turned immediately to see who it was. Oh no, I groaned the moment I saw her. Don't you ever get tired? Why are you here again? I almost yelled, feeling slightly irritated at her presence, knowing fully well that she had come to annoy me like the last time, or probably even give me a lecture. Did your little boss send you on an errand again? I questioned her again, definitely mocking her this time. I was beginning to get sick and tired of the constant appearances she kept on making. Why couldn't they just leave me alone? You still haven't gotten the staff right? She asked, ignoring my initial question. What do you take me as? And how is that even your business? Can't you just stay off? And moreover, do you think I'm some fool? I went on, staring at her in displeasure. However, she didn't respond to me. All she did was just stare at me. Her stares made me wonder what she had in that head of hers. I really do not give too much damn about the Luna Goddess and her goddamned messengers. I've come to believe that I no longer need them. I'm the strongest alpha king any wolf pack has ever had. I literally could get whatever or whoever I wanted. Just as it was too easy to get Vanessa. It has been 2 days since I got Vanessa in my possession, and I was desperately waiting for William. It was still a wonder to me why he had not come yet to save Vanessa he so desperately didn't want me to see. I came with a message from the Luna Goddess. The messenger said to me again, but I didn't pay much attention to her. My mind was fixed on the same thing it had been fixed on right before she rudely waltzed in from nowhere exactly. This time I was already pacing up and about my room like I had been doing at first. I was bothered at the fact that my plans were not working according to my plans. It was something I equally hated. The question now was, what would I do with Vanessa if he didn't come? It wasn't like she was of any importance to me. I only needed my staff from her. Free Vanessa and do the right thing, she said again, interrupting my thoughts. Can't you just shut the hell up? I yelled immediately in anger. For some reason, the silence she gave me only irritated me greatly. I quickly rushed towards her in a bid to smack her hard on the face, or perhaps even hurt her, but that had only been a wrong movement because she quickly used her staff against me, gluing me right down to the spot while I struggled to free myself. My eyes followed her as she slowly began to move towards me. I see you've become more stupid than I thought, she said to me, a smirk embracing her face. What were you thinking trying to attack a messenger of the Luna Goddess? Do you think you can ever beat me in a battle? She stood right in front of me. Put me down and let's see about that, I said inwardly, hoping she had really heard me. It was just so bad that I couldn't say anything to her, passing her a response. The Luna Goddess sent me down here to remind you about the prisoner whom you are holding captive in your place, she began. Or, scrap that. Is she even a captive? I heard her burst into a loud chuckle. Free her if you do not want to face any wrath, she said, and I could see the glint of anger flashing through her eyes. I knew that was definitely a warning. And was it the final warning? Soon, she walked out through the door, and the moment she was out, I fell back to my normal state, able to move my body. Curse you. I cursed immediately. It was so stupid of her to think I was definitely going to let Vanessa go. Go where exactly? I wondered. As far as I was concerned, Vanessa was also mine. My captive, my slave, and I was going to do whatever I deemed possible to do. I would have let her go in peace despite knowing she was a witch like my grandfather said. But then, she has the audacity to steal from me. What insolence. Immediately the door sprang open. Have you suddenly lost your manners? I yelled at the guard who sprang in, panting like he had been chased by a beast. I'm sorry, Alpha King. He apologized, still breathing heavily. But there's a problem, he added. And my ears sprang up immediately, so eager to hear what it was about. What is it? I asked, taking quick steps towards him. But he hesitated. Open your mouth and speak, or I will cut it off for you, I yelled, making him shake in fear. Vanessa. He paused to swallow. What happened to Vanessa? Speak, I ordered, authority booming through my voice. One might think I was beginning to care for her safety. But sadly, it was far from that. If anything happens to Vanessa, none of the plans I had made would definitely work out. She's having an attack. He let out, and I froze. What did you say? Honestly, I was shocked. Patrick's point of view. It's just a few more miles from here now. Come on. Was he really a guard? Why was he so slow? I knew that I was more on the athletic side, but it was expected that he was going to be faster than I was. I put some more energy into pushing my legs to move faster than they were already. I could already feel myself about to start feeling out of breath because of how much distance was already covered, but I pushed it down. Why did the location suddenly seem farther than usual? I wondered as the journey took almost an hour. I closed my mouth and stopped the heaving of breath because it was only making me lose strength faster and feel tired more easily, and we still had some distance to cover before we got to where she was. I needed to get there as fast as I could, and I wasn't going to do that if I tired myself out. The room was something nondescript, and, due to the gag in her mouth, I knew that she wasn't going to be able to call for help. Still, it was imperative that I got there in record time. Vanessa was a hostage that I wasn't ready to let go of soon. Finally, I could start making out the building that she was inside. I slowed to a stop in front of the building and waited a few moments to catch my breath. I didn't want to go in and start panting like someone deprived of oxygen for too long. That seemed too cheap for an alpha. I needed to be the picture of composure and look like I had the upper hand at all times. When I calmed down enough, I turned back and saw that my guard was just catching up with me. I was going to deal with him later. I started taking unhurried steps to the door that was already in plain sight. But suddenly, the weirdest thing happened. The building that was before me morphed into a cluster of wildflowers. I turned around, confused at what I was seeing, and frowned when I realized that I was standing in the middle of some garden. Everywhere I turned, there was some flower or tree growing. The sounds of birds chirping as they flew overhead with some resting in the trees filtered into my ears. What was this rubbish? 1 minute I was about to go see my hostage, Vanessa, and the next, I was in a garden? It didn't make any sense. I took a few steps forward to see if there was a way out, but even as I did so, I couldn't see any. As a matter of fact, the land, as far as my eyes could see, was covered with flowers of different shapes, sizes and colors growing on every hook and cranny. I didn't know how I got there, but one thing I knew was that I needed to get out as soon as I could. Just as I turned in the opposite direction, I was met by the back of a person. I frowned because there was no one there when I turned around earlier. There was no way I could have missed a whole human standing there, so I knew that my eyes were not deceiving me. Hey! I didn't touch the person, but from the hair and the posture, I could tell that it was a man. I was ready for a fight if that was what was needed for me to get out of whatever weird imagination or universe I was in and back to the life that I was living. I needed to get back, and there was nothing that was going to stop me from doing that. The person turned and, just as I expected, it was a man. But on a closer look, I realized that it was an older man. Well, the limp that was meant to look stylish should have given it away at first. But it didn't, because I was distracted by my desire to get back to what I was familiar with. I actually didn't plan on sticking around for a conversation or some glass of lemonade anyway. Patrick, you have to stop all the things that you're doing. he suddenly let out, surprising the hell out of me. What? Wait, what the hell was he talking about? I was sure that my confusion could show on my face, but I didn't care. What did he mean that I needed to stop what I was doing? What did I do to him? I would have remembered if I had done something, especially if he was someone I knew. Is this some sort of joke? Who the hell are you? I questioned, but he only smirked, irritating the hell out of me. Now look, old man, I don't have a deal with you. Just tell me where the way out of this crazy place is. I have somewhere to be, I said, my impatience giving away. The man shook his head. He was getting on my nerves that were already shot. Did we have some sort of business together that I didn't know about? Patrick, if you want to live long, you have to stop acting the way you do. You have to quit all the things that you're into. Let go of all that you're embroiled in, and start your life afresh as a changed person. Hold the damn horses a damn minute. Did he just threaten the longevity of my life? Just who did he think he was to tell me anything like that? Who was he to threaten me in that manner? I was fuming, which should have prompted an attack. But surprisingly, I didn't move. I held myself back. It didn't make sense to do anything stupid to the person who seemed to be getting out of life pretty soon. However, the idiot repeated himself. Couldn't he see that I was already at my wit's end? I didn't bother warning him because my face should have done enough of that, and balled my fists. Just as he was about saying that rubbish for the third time, like I was a deaf person who didn't hear him the first twice, I swung with all the anger in me, and waited for my fist to come in contact with his jaw for me to hear the satisfying crunch of his bones, but nothing came. Instead, my fist swung into thin air. I turned around looking for the old man, but he was nowhere to be found. He had disappeared. Hell. William's point of view. The cool breeze kissed my skin, suddenly increasing the urgent need for me to go back in and stay curled up on my bed and let the sleep elude me. But none of that could happen because I wasn't in my bed. Neither could I fall asleep. And it was all thanks to the thought of Vanessa playing in my head all through the day and time. I found myself wondering about what she could be doing, or what was going on with her at the moment. Where had they kept her? Was she being fed well? Was she protected from the cold, chilly weather? All of these and a lot more were what I found myself thinking of. Most times, even when I found myself trying to shut her out of my head, it just couldn't work. I even thought about the baby. Had Patrick found out about the baby, his child? And the moment he did, what was he going to do? Did Vanessa also plan on telling him about the pregnancy too? Gosh. Even the thought that she had a child for Patrick pissed me off. You should know that thinking too much about certain stuff you have no power over is injurious to your health, right? I heard the voice, and I turned immediately to see who it was. Surprisingly, it was Dr. Elliot. What was he doing back here? Did I still need to be checked upon? Everything has always been injurious to my health, I said, forcing a smile to appear on my face while he joined me sitting on the bench. When I turned to watch him, I saw that he hadn't been coming with his usual healer's backpack. That means he didn't come to check up on me. What was he here for then? I wondered. You know, he started as he let out a loud sigh, adjusting the thick coat he was putting on. I bet the cold weather wasn't affecting just me. I've never seen you this way. It's a first time. Well, at least the first after Mara's death, he said, causing a change of mood immediately. I didn't respond to his statement because it was a topic of the past, one that I had left dead a long time ago. However, I bet he must have observed that I wasn't going to respond anytime soon because I felt his eyes on me, watching and waiting to hear me speak. I know it's a painful past, but this present seems worthwhile, he said again. For some reason, I should have felt the thought of Mara a bit hurting to say, since he just mentioned her, distracting the thought of Vanessa. Yet, that didn't happen. While Mara's name made me feel so weak, Vanessa's thought made my heart race. Can we just leave Mara back in the past? I suddenly asked, hoping my voice didn't sound as harsh as I felt my words did. I acknowledged that. Dr. Elliot said, and everywhere suddenly went quiet, leaving both of us to drown a bit in our thoughts for a while. Again, the cool breeze blew hard, making me think it was going to rain anytime soon. I hissed when the cold kissed my skin so hard as ice. I really should have brought my usual jacket. Why are you here? I asked Dr. Elliot immediately. His presence was already interrupting my thoughts, so I couldn't just sit and allow that. I had planned to have time alone and let my thoughts travel wildly, but not with him present. I came for you. He answered, and I turned immediately in surprise and equal confusion. You came for me? Do I look like I'm in trouble? Or perhaps I need help? I asked, my eyes still on him. Believe me, I was shocked at his statement. Surprisingly, he burst into a light chuckle. My statement probably sounded funny. You might think you're in no trouble, but my dear friend, you are, he said, his sharp gray eyes looking deep into mine. Although it is not as deep of trouble as you might think of. He quickly added, I'm so curious to know the problem you're talking about, I found myself saying. Vanessa, he quickly said. How's she in trouble now? I groaned. Talking about Vanessa with anyone was the last thing I planned on doing. Oh no. Sweet Vanessa isn't a problem for you. That wasn't what I was implying. She is, of course, a blessing, he said, his words making my heart race. But I know you will definitely try to ignore talking about it with anyone. That's why I came prepared, he said, and I found myself laughing at the statement. He surely came prepared. Why do you think the old man asked me not to go rescue Vanessa? I asked immediately. Well, like he said, that would be you stepping into Patrick's well-curated trap, Dr. Elliot responded, leaving me to sigh. So, what am I going to do now? I asked him again. Let me ask you this. He paused, adjusting himself on the bench, while my eyes and ears were open to hear his question. Do you trust that old man? Do you know him well enough to trust him? He finally asked. His question made me pause to think for a while. Did I? I questioned myself again. This was someone I had no close relationship with whatsoever. Even if I had met him once before, was that a reason enough to trust him? Well, I guess I do. He was right about the tragedy that befell Vanessa's parents, I said, even if the words felt stupid to my ears. Believe me when I say it felt like I was pushed to admit that. Yet I didn't feel like I had made any wrong decision. Then, do as he said. Wait for the right time to present himself, he said, smiling largely at him. Patrick's point of view. Are you sure you're all right? Simon, my beta asked me, his eyes heavily fixed on me, and I could smell the concern he had for me even if I didn't bother staring at him. Don't I look all right? I asked, my eyes fixed on the bruise I had gotten on my leg, which was taking almost forever to heal. How did I get a bruise? Of course, I know you must be wondering how. What do you say? Should we put eyes on the ground for the culprit? Simon asked again. This time, I could sense the boiling anger in his voice. If the culprit was standing right in front of him, I bet he would turn him into a mincemeat. You mean the old man? I asked him. Of course, the old man, he responded immediately. Nah, I shook my head. I bet you can get him. You can never do that, I said, but nothing came from him. There was a full-blown silence. Immediately, I turned to look at him. Then, I saw the pain flashing in his eyes. Oh no, don't think of it as me underestimating you, I let out immediately. I'm only saying the old man doesn't seem ordinary. There's more to him than we can imagine. I starred. There was this weird aura I felt around him. He has powers, and I can feel them. Powers that are not ordinary. One that I have never experienced myself. And someone like that, you can't get to him unless he gives you the chance to do so. I explained to him, hoping he would understand clearly what I was trying to say. This was not just about trying to show how strong of a wolf you were. You also have to watch out for your opponent. Just after I tried to launch an attack on the old man, he disappeared, but not before sending a windy blow towards me, pushing me to fly so hard, hitting my leg on a rock, which resulted in a bruise on my leg. Before I proceed into the important thing I came here for, I would like to ask, what do we do about William? I don't think he would be launching an attack anytime soon, Simon said, prying quickly into my thoughts, and at the same time reminding me about one of my worries. William, I repeated their name again. Truth be told, I hadn't even thought about what I was going to do with him. Do you suggest we launch an attack on him? Simon went on. Does that seem any sensible to you? Don't we have Vanessa right where we want her? I asked. I know that, but there are other stories we could think of, giving us leverage to hurt him. Stories like what? I asked, suddenly loving the smartness I was getting from my beta. We could say he had in possession an offender of the Alpha King for a long time. Or we could even put it that he had also connived to have your staff, he said, causing me to roar in laughter. Oh God, you seem to be getting 10 times more dangerous than your Alpha King, I said, and he smiled satisfactorily at me. Well, he was right. Those ideas were top-notch. But then it would be something I'd think of later because as it stood, there was something more threatening. But what about Vanessa? Did you go to see her? He asked, quickly diving into another topic. Vanessa? My mind quickly flashed back to what had prompted me to leave the room where I met the old man. I didn't get to meet her anymore. You can see I had something important to attend to, I said, pointing at the bruise. You should get the healer, Simon quickly said, a frown embracing his face. That would have been necessary, but as you can see, it's already healed, I said, standing up, showing to him my healed leg. Simon let out a sigh immediately. I could guess he wasn't surprised at the healing process. I should have healed faster than that, though. Suddenly, he moved closer to me. You're hiding something, he let out immediately. I'm hiding nothing, I quickly said to him. For a few minutes, he said nothing but fixed his eyes on me. I could see that he was trying to search deeply into it and get the answers he needed. But then, I wasn't even sure of myself, so there was nothing I could provide. If that's the case then, can we move to Vanessa? I asked, moving away from him when he had nothing else to say. You still haven't asked the staff from her, he said immediately. I stopped for a while and turned to face him. Are you suddenly questioning me? I asked, feeling the irritation rising through me. He deeply sighed. Forgive me, Alpha King, if it sounded like that. But then, I'm just looking out for your safety, he said immediately, and I could begin to see the guilt in his eyes. I understood perfectly well that Simon was ready to do anything to save me, protect me if possible, lay down his life for me. Simon had become my beta right after I saved his family from the hands of the Coven witches who had been threatening them for centuries. That day, he had pledged his life, and that of his family, to always serve me. But as it stood, there were things I didn't trust in myself yet that I'd trust him. Tell me about Vanessa. I heard she was having an attack. I began. How is that possible? What exactly is going on with her? Since I've been with her, I've never heard of her or seen her having an attack. So, what could it be? I asked, rushing my words because I was suddenly curious to find out since I couldn't make it over there. According to the healer, something is wrong with her abdomen and... Abdomen? I cut him short immediately. Was she poisoned or what? I asked, staring at him in utter confusion. No, it wasn't entirely poison, he said, pausing for a while as he thought, probably of the right words to use. Slowly, I took my steps closer to him. If it wasn't poison, then what was it? I know there's something. Speak now, I ordered. The thing is, he swallowed. She's having issues with the baby. Baby? I froze. What baby? Vanessa's point of view. While the healer kept her gaze on me, my heart couldn't help but beat frantically. Yes, that was because I was greatly troubled. There was no way the healer wouldn't have found out that I was pregnant. And definitely the stares she gave me showed she was going to tell Patrick. Oh God, why did I have to have an attack now of all times? Of all places? Why here? My head was filled with worry that I was so absent-minded about whatever other occupants in the room might have been saying. Despite the pains that had not fully subsided, I was still chained to the bed. Honestly, everything was beginning to get so frustrating that I didn't know what to do or think. Has he been informed yet? I saw the healer turn to the guard who was behind her. Thanks to her voice, I was able to come back to reality. I watched the guard whisper something into her ears, and I wondered what it was. The way they both stared at me made my heart race faster in fear. What were these people going to do to me? Would Patrick hurt me knowing I was carrying his child? And also, I haven't even thought too much about the child I was carrying. But I surely knew I didn't plan on endangering the life of my child. Slowly, I watched the healer take her steps closer to me. Her eyes were fixed on me too. This particular healer was really frightening. Not only that, she also wore this dangerous look on her face. Her eyes, unlike the other healers, were bright blue. Healers were known and believed to have normal eye color like humans. However, Simone's case was different. For how long have you known that you're with a child? Simone, the healer asked me, her eyes still heavily fixed on me. I hesitated to respond to her as my eyes darted around the room in fear. I knew it. She had something to say. I do not know what you're talking about. Probably you're mistaken. I swallowed hard as I spoke, and immediately she let out loud laughter. Her laughter was one of those wicked ones that sent a dangerous message. Am I mistaken? You're really saying that? She asked amidst her laughter. Do I look like I'm in any mood for your stupid jokes, Vanessa? She questioned, staring daggers at me. And do I look like I'm joking with you too? I spat back at her, not ready to accept defeat. I couldn't even get why she was suddenly sounding so harsh towards me. It's not like we've met before or like I had taken something of hers. And it's no business of hers if I have a child or not. Simone and I had met right during the time Patrick and I were still in love. Or rather, I had been the only one in love because Patrick's recent attitude towards me did not look like he had ever loved me. I can see you have no morals for the elderly. She started again, turning to look back at the guard behind her. The same guard who I had mentioned seeing with her at first. I didn't actually get to understand what it was that they were saying to each other, but I could sense something was wrong somewhere. These two seemed to have something up their sleeves. Do you know you could be punished for keeping the child of the Alpha King's secret? It's actually a punishable offense, Salmon went on saying. I was greatly aware that her plan was to scare me. Like I said, it's not possible I'm with a child. So, I can't answer that question, I said stubbornly, refusing to give in. Vanessa, she yelled instantly, anger and irritation flashing through her eyes. You're really getting on my nerves, she said, and raised her hands immediately, ready to throw a slap on my face. But, don't you dare. We all heard the daring voice. The moment we all turned to see who it was, everyone present in the room gave way for him to walk in, bowing their heads in respect. Patrick, I gasped, feeling a bit relieved at first. Finally, I was going to be free from Simone's taunting. But it didn't last long when I suddenly remembered he was definitely aware of the truth if he had successfully come there. You seem to have forgotten your place, Salmon, he said rather than ask the moment he walked in. I could see how shaken Salmon was. Of course, the only person she seemed to fear was Patrick. When she didn't give him a response, he stared at her for a long time until soon, his eyes rested on me. We locked gazes at first, and I flinched like I had been bruised. He took calculated steps towards me, with his eyes still fixed on me. I couldn't tell what he had going on in his head, nor could I tell how he was feeling after definitely receiving such news. When he got closer to the bed, he knelt to my level, and I could literally feel his breath. So close. Vanessa, he called, dragging my name in a different tone that sent chills down my spine. You know how much I hate being lied to, and I'm pretty sure you've seen what happens to those who lie to me, he said, and every word of his made me swallow hard. Now tell me, who exactly is the father of that child? He asked, and I could see his eyes resting on my belly. I thought carefully of my next words. I thought of the consequences if I told the truth or stuck to the lie I kept giving Salmon. Either way, wasn't he going to find out the truth? I thought. You don't deserve to be the father of my child, I growled, feeling irritation and anger suddenly surfing through me. Patrick irritated me the more when he burst into uncontrollable laughter. So it all seemed funny to him, right? I am so relieved to know I have something stronger to keep you by my side, he said, standing to his feet. But I hope you don't expect any special treatment whatsoever, because as you now know, I now have a Luna, he said, passing me a mischievous smile. I curse the day I ever met you. I yelled at him, but he cared less as he chuckled. Unexpectedly, the door flew open, revealing a strange man at the door. My heart skipped when I thought of who it could be. The guards in the room were already set to attack this dangerously looking man as they snarled at him. How was he able to get in? "Brother," he called the moment he pulled off the cloak, revealing his identity. His eyes rested on Patrick. "What the hell are you doing here, Damien?" Patrick asked, looking terrified. The sun was slowly going down, gazing its orange hue on the earth. Two ladies walked side by side into the forest in cloaks that made their faces almost hard to detect. They moved slowly, as they knew there was no need to rush. It did not take long for them to get to their destination. The center of the forest. Not many come to this place, and not many can spot them in a place like this, not even when people climb the tallest trees. It was secluded. In fact, not many like this part of the forest because of how dangerous people think it is, but it was the safest place to meet considering the situation. "You are sure he will be able to come here?" the lady in a black cloak said. The lady in a red cloak nodded, looking around. "Surely. What kind of man would he be if he could not come to this part of the forest?" "You like testing men and their bravery," the lady in a black cloak teased, looking around. "Do you think we can do it?" she added. And the lady in a red cloak snapped her head towards her the next minute. "That fear is something we don't need," the lady in the red cloak said firmly. "The Alpha King must be destroyed, and we must be brave to accomplish it and not be filled with fear," she mocked. "I was only asking. You don't need to insult me. It's not an insult if you brought it upon yourself. I can't wait to get this over with, so I can stop having to stand you." The lady in the red cloak shut down the other lady before she could speak. "Someone's coming," she whispered. Like the wind, they both climbed the nearest trees they could find. Though they did not have to stay up there long, as it was the man they were waiting for who arrived. They both dropped behind him, with the woman in a red cloak speaking first as he turned around to look at them. "You're late," she scolded. "I apologize. It was a long trip to this place," the man explained. "Do you have what we asked of you?" the lady in a red cloak questioned. Yes, the man said, quickly taking out a piece of paper from his bag, then handed it over to the woman in a cloak, who took it with her left hand. She opened it quickly and read the contents in a few minutes. "You mean this is the only time we can come in?" she asked. The man nodded. "Unfortunately, yes. If we try another day, we might lose our heads before the set time, and that would not be pretty." The woman in a red cloak passed the paper to the woman in the black cloak. She read through it, and from her tone, the man could tell that she was not pleased. "This is too much of a risky time," she told them. "I know, but—" "No buts," the woman in the red cloak interrupted. She wanted to speak again, but then she shut her mouth to think. The time was not suitable for them. The Alpha King would be down, but it was still a big risk to them. The park is fully guarded. "And are you sure this is the only time?" "I do not mind if we will have a better chance by tomorrow," the woman in the red cloak said. The man shook his head. "If there was another, I would have brought that forward instead of this. I'm sorry, but this is the only time we can do this. Outside that, it would be more dangerous," the man explained. "I don't believe that. Think. There has to be another time," the woman in a black cloak instructed. The man stayed quiet for a few minutes, thinking. From his little research, he was able to get the little information that he had included in the paper he had handed to them. He had thought throughout the night, trying to come up with something good. Something that would not seem too dangerous. The time he had picked was the only time he was able to see a little loophole in all the security planning going on. But then, could they bypass the security of another day? He still doubted if that was possible. After 10 minutes of silence in the forest by all three of them, the man spoke. "I'm sorry, that is the only day. I've did my reasonable research," the man said. The ladies glanced at themselves. For 10 minutes they refused to say anything. Their silence made it seem like he was being asked to keep thinking. So he did that. "I think there is another way, though," he finally said something. "Speak," the lady in the black cloak urged. "We kill the warriors," he said. "They are the stumbling block. If we can get rid of them quietly, when their guard is down just before that day, then we might have more leverage." "And who will do this dirty work?" the lady in the red cloak said. "We three," the man said quickly. "I certainly cannot act on my own. If we want to cover more ground and men, we have to work together. We strike them slowly." "And if they seek help from other packs?" the lady in a black cloak asked. "We end them before they get here. It would not be hard since they would be in one place, moving in the same direction. We just need to keep alert and watch everything going on so we can plan properly," the man explained. It was not a bad plan, according to the lady in the red cloak. If they can weaken the force, then the Alpha King would be left bare and easier to destroy. They did not want to kill this many people at first, but they had to do what they had to do. "Fine, I do not care how we destroy the Alpha King. So long as he is destroyed, I am good. That plan goes," she told them. Patrick's point of view. "I'd really be damned if you didn't tell me the honest reason why you are here." "I wasn't told you'd be here, whereas I should have gotten a message," I said as I walked through the hallway leading to my room with Damien right behind me. "Do I have to tell you now before I come to see you? What if it's an urgent meeting and I can't wait any longer to receive a response to the message?" Damien asked, his voice sounding a bit weird in my head. Or probably it was just me still holding on to the anger since the last fight. I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at him immediately. Then, I could really get a good picture of his face. Unlike the past, his hair had grown longer. I could get a glimpse of it reaching his waist length. And I paused. Wasn't that the kind of hair length for women? Damien just never loved being normal. I searched for his eyes again, and I could smell his inner wolf even from where I stood. But there was something wrong with his eyes. It didn't give away any feelings or emotions. It just felt so blank. And I hated it, knowing the kind of mischievous wolf I was dealing with. "Have you suddenly forgotten your place?" I asked, making sure he could get the hint of displeasure in my voice. "You have to tell me if you're coming to visit or stay here. This isn't your home," I said, putting heavy emphasis on the home. For a moment, he said nothing. All he did was stare at me, still blank. I couldn't even tell how he was feeling at the moment. Honestly, there was something definitely going wrong with Damien. He was never like that. And if he felt he could come in and try to destroy me just like he did the last time, then he would know that he was a total failure. "And has your ban even been lifted?" I questioned again. "You seem not to have been keeping records." He smirked. I swear to God I wanted to push him so hard in the face. After all, he deserved it. But here I was, suddenly turning soft overnight. "Yes, his ban has not been lifted though. But it has come to an end. By the way, what are you here for? It's been centuries. No one ever expected you'd come back after what happened," I said to him, in a hurry to dispose of him. At the same time, I kept walking back to my room. That was all in the past. He finally let out, creating an avenue for me to hear his voice again. "Well, thanks to your awful action in the past, no one wants you home again," I repeated while I pushed the door to my room open. "I'm here to change that." I heard him say, but I didn't say anything. I was forced to ignore that when I saw a bat resting on my window. Holy moly, I was shocked because that was a bad omen. It was too early in the day to have a bat come visit, especially one resting on the window of an Alpha King. How dare they? Immediately I snarled at it, my red eyes growing for it to run. However, despite my attempts at getting it out of the way, it didn't move out as quickly as I thought. It only stared at me for a longer hour, and left when I felt it was done with whatever had been its mission. Well, that was weird. I sighed and turned to see what Damien was doing behind me. His eyes were fixed on my window, the exact spot the bat had stood. "Hey, it's gone," I said, nudging him to stop staring so we could get done with whatever it was we had to do. "You should have killed it," he said the moment he stopped looking and sat on the armchair I had in my room. "Why didn't you just do that? After all, you're stronger," he went on. "Just the same way, it is a bad omen for one to visit during such odd hours. Killing it too, especially by a wolf, is also a bad omen," I explained, hoping he'd understand too. "Is that a pack law or an ancient law?" he asked. "An ancient law, of course. Pack laws are laws governing each wolf pack," I said again, sharing quite a bountiful information with him. "Well, ancient laws are certainly boring and quite irritating," he said, and I chuckled. "I think I support you on this one. Most times I just feel like I'm being trapped from exercising my power as an Alpha King. But the Luna Goddess says it's an arena of curving my powers, teaching me control over them. All in all, I think it's a good thing," I said. "Tsh," he scoffed. "I don't think it's sensible to have powers, or be the greatest, and you still have to control them, or have limits to exercising them. That's all nonsense. Or don't you think?" he questioned, with every word he just said sinking deep into me. Truthfully, he was right even if I hated to admit it. There were times I also thought of the same thing. Why do I have to have limits to how I exercise my powers? Why then was I given those powers? Does someone as powerful and dominant as I was have to learn control over my powers? Or even be told how to make use of my powers? Again, I'll ask, "Why are you here?" I asked, diving into the main course of discussion. I needed to be mean and not as open as a book to him. This was someone who had broken my trust centuries ago. Damien was my cousin. Yes, but in the past he had chosen the wrong course. Let the conflicts begin. Patrick's point of view. I remember the times Damien was asked his reason for the betrayal. He had boldly said he was possessed by the witches he had worked with to overthrow me. But the Luna Goddess and elders didn't buy any of that. I didn't even buy it because it was obvious he did it out of hate of me from the beginning. Convening with the greatest enemies of every wolf pack, which were witches, was a big step of betrayal. Damien's father and mine were brothers. Well, after the death of his father, who had been Alpha King, my father stepped in as next in line. Although it wasn't what should have happened, owing to the fact that Damien's father had him as a son. But my grandfather, the elders, and the Luna Goddess couldn't let little baby Damien step on. There was no way he could handle the powers of an Alpha King. So, they chose my father. After we both grew into men, my father passed on, and a new Alpha King was to be chosen. But my grandfather declared a test to choose from his two grandsons, the rightful one for the throne. Truth be told, I was surprised because I had expected Damien was going to rule next, but I couldn't say otherwise to my grandfather. And so, a test was taken. In fact, several tests were taken, and I came victorious in the last test where we were told to kill an Omega who had betrayed our pack. Damien couldn't do it at that time because he was still one with a merciful and meek heart, where I was one with a beastly heart. From that day onward, Damien's hatred for me began. To him, I had stolen what should have been his, and I had killed his best friend, the Omega whom we were asked to kill. "I'm here to save you," he spewed, shocking the hell out of me. Excuse me? It was just so weird for him to think he could actually save me. Who is Damien, and who is I? "I got news that a pack of rogue wolves are about to attack you. They've sketched out their plans, and, in any time soon, your pack will be burnt to the ground," he said, sounding so assured that I was going to get defeated. Was he stupid or something? He had really come down there after a long time, and this was his best way of seeking forgiveness? Oh Lord, I should have known. I sighed as I stood up. I could see how he stared at me in confusion. But I was more confused. "Are you crazy? Is this the foolish discussion you had with me?" I almost yelled at him. "You really think I'm lying?" he asked, standing up too. "I don't even care if you're lying because hell, how do you expect me to trust you after what you did in the past?" I asked. "Why are you just so hell-bent on the past?" he asked immediately. "Because you broke not just my trust but everyone's trust," I thundered. Everywhere went dead quiet immediately. He didn't say anything. All he did was stare at me. "Get the hell out," I ordered immediately, provoked at his silence. He didn't seem like he was going to defend himself. Vanessa's point of view. "Vanessa," I heard the unfamiliar voice, and I turned immediately to see who it was. But I couldn't find anyone. While trying to find out who it was calling out to me, I suddenly realized I couldn't recognize where I was at the moment. The place looked like a hallway though, but it wasn't one of the hallways I had been to and could recognize. Where was I wondered, and I began to move forward in an attempt to get out, probably to a place I was aware of. "Vanessa, stop," I heard again, the voice stopping me right before I could get out. And just as I heard my name, I stopped. "Who are you?" I bravely shot out. "Show yourself," I said again, my eyes moving all around the hallway to find out who it was. But still, after half an hour of waiting and searching to see who it was, there was no one. The moment I tried to take a step forward in an attempt to continue my journey, the growling I heard from every corner of the hallway stopped me. What was that? I wondered, suddenly feeling fear clouding my heart. I could definitely feel my heart racing faster than usual. Again, I heard the growling right after I stopped. This time, it was louder than the first one I had heard. I slowly began to take steps backwards while my eyes were fixed right in front of see if I was going to find whatever was growling. And each step I took backwards prompted another growling from the creature I was yet to see. It felt like the creature was watching me. Successfully, I got to the end of the door, and that was when I felt it. "Hello, Vanessa," I heard from behind me, the voice sending a chill feeling down my spine. I choked on my voice as I felt the claws crawling around my neck in an attempt to choke me. I didn't need anyone to tell me that whoever this was, he or she was definitely dangerous, and my life was in danger. "Look right ahead of you," the voice said, pointing straight ahead in front of me. Slowly, I turned towards the direction it took me in. "Oh God," I cried the moment I saw the reflection of the woman who was holding me captive in the mirror. I didn't know where it appeared from. Her eyes were glowing red, with the fangs that dripped what I considered to be a poisonous liquid, or perhaps saliva. The horns on her head seemed to have been the reason for her shrinking face, perhaps. Immediately, she snarled at me. Vanessa's point of view. I woke up immediately, feeling the beads of sweat wet my clothes. My heart was pounding profusely as I had been scared that it was all playing out in reality. It was just a dream. Yes, it was a dream. I kept repeating to myself with my hands pressed on my chest. However, I paused for a while as I felt a sudden eeriness in the room. Firstly, I could move my hands and legs, which meant that I was no longer chained. Then the door opened. Why? It was just in the middle of the night, so why was the door open, and who had left it open? Was it done on purpose? I wondered. For what it was worth, I was actually scared of moving any closer and escaping because there was something fishy about it all. Shh! I suddenly heard the hissing sound, and I froze. Where was this sound coming from? Immediately, my inner wolf was triggered, and my eyes glowed, and I used to search the room to see if I could find something that was threatening. And there, just right beside me, a few meters by my right-hand side, I saw a creature that I couldn't make a name of, sitting on a stool. When I took a closer look at it with my glowing eyes, it looked like a little child, but one with a compressed head. I was really scared as it looked at me with all intensity. Was it the one who had hissed? I wondered. Quietly, I pressed myself backwards on the bed, making sure my back rested on the wall. "Don't be scared, Vanessa. I will bring you good tidings," the child said, twitching its neck as it spoke. Who are you?" I stuttered in fear. "You know me already. I am your friend. Except that you've never seen me in this way," he said to me, and I wondered. What did it mean by that? I don't remember having any friends. And even if I did, it wouldn't be one who looked as hideous as this. I don't remember having a friend. Please, what do you want? Don't harm me. I begged, almost crying, as that was the only thing I could do. I won't hurt you, Vanessa. It went on again. A friend can't hurt another friend. Then what did you come here to do? I quickly asked. But I tried not to be so loud so as not to attract the guards outside. Oh, don't worry about the guards. Everyone is fast asleep. I made sure of that, he said, shocking the hell out of me. I paused and swallowed hard. You can hear my thoughts? I asked, staring at it in surprise. It didn't laugh, but I could see a thin smile form on its face. Yes, I can. Whatever it is you say or think, I can hear it. He answered, and I couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. I know that should be a cause for alarm, but I don't see it as that anymore. It suddenly felt like I was with my guardian angel, my protector. What do you have for me? You said you brought in good tidings? I said, reminding them of its words. Yes, I do, he answered, and suddenly turned towards the door. I followed suit, doing the same thing, but there was nothing there except the open door which I had seen earlier. What is it? There isn't anything there, right? I asked because I believed he could see farther than I could. A war is about to start, and that door is open for your safety, it said, suddenly sounding more serious than ever. You have to flee right at dawn. But what if I get caught? I asked, fear suddenly springing up from my chest. You can't get caught, it said, and I swallowed. But I started immediately, wanting to get more information on whatever I was getting myself into. What war is that? And why is there going to be a war? I asked. This is a planned war to destroy the Alpha King, he answered, and I felt an unexpected gladness arise inside of me. Yes, finally, there was going to be a war to destroy that cursed fellow. He seems to have more enemies than I thought, I said, feeling abundant happiness arise inside of me. But I didn't get a response from the creature. I became frantic immediately. Are you still there? My eyes glowed again, searching for him in the spot he had been seated, but he was no longer there. Hello? I called out again, my eyes moving in every direction of the room, searching for him. I'm here, little one. Don't fret. I suddenly heard a voice coming from the direction of the door. I looked up immediately, and I was shocked to see who it was. Old man, I called out immediately. He had been the one all along. I couldn't believe it. I told you I was your friend, he said, and smiled at me. I bet he was about to take his leave, which was his reason for standing at the door. He would meet you in the forest, right at the cave. He said to me, run faster and stay safe until then, little one, he said, and before I could ask who he was talking about, he disappeared. He would meet you in the forest, in the cave. His words rang again in my ears. I was trying so hard to find out what he was referring to. William, I called out immediately. Why had I been so slow to think of that? William was the only man I know who would risk his life to save me, no matter what. His thoughts suddenly swimming in my head made me recall the days I had been locked up in this room, yearning for his touch. I know it seemed too fast to start thinking so far with him, but then, this was a matter of the heart, and I couldn't help it. Even if I wondered why it was taking him so long to come save me, I still held on to the faith that he was still going to come. Suddenly, the door went shut, and I froze. How was I going to escape? Chapter 28 of The Rejected Omega is pregnant and back to take revenge. Chapter title, The Right Time. William's point of view. William. William. I kept hearing the voice calling out to me, but I was just too tired to open my eyes. William, it went again, and I groaned, finally opening my eyes while I stood up from my bed. Can't someone get a good sleep around here? I groaned. Well, you should do that, but that will be right after the job is done. I heard, and I paused immediately. That voice sounded familiar. Quickly, I searched around me, but there was nobody. Was I suddenly talked to by a ghost? I wondered. However, in the process of finding out whose familiar voice I heard, I realized that I wasn't in my room, nor on my bed as I had thought. Curse that old man. I groaned as I quickly stood up from the grass. Wasn't it just too early to wake up in the forest? I thought. I began to dust the dirt that seemed to have been glued to my shorts. I suddenly heard, and I turned behind me to see who it was. Oh yes, I knew it was you. You never choose the best places to deliver your message, I said to the old man who was standing a few meters away from me. His hands were folded right behind me. Don't you think it's wrong of you to complain to your guardian angel, little one? He questioned, and I wasn't blind to not see the smirk that had enveloped his face. Guardian angel, you say? And little one? Oh God, please, I exclaimed. Do you think I'm some sort of old man in his 30s? Come on, man, I'm over 100 years old, I said, feeling the need to boast a little. For the first time since I met the old man, I watched him burst into hearty laughter, Oh yeah, laugh all you want. But please next time wake me up in a beautiful place. I don't want dirt sticking all over me, I said, and resumed dusting. I didn't get a response from him, but I believed he heard what I said. Vanessa, he stated, causing me to stop. What happened to Vanessa? I asked, moving closer to him in no time. I could already feel the panic in my chest. My palms were already sweaty while my fists were set to go out to war. Will you stay calm? The old man asked, pushing me away from him. You really need to see to it that you don't go mad because of how much you love her, he said to me. I never said I loved her. I shot at him. Oh, yes, I knew that was going to happen. He chuckled, but I didn't say anything. Why are you suddenly denying the truth? He asked me, looking at me deeply. I'm not denying it. It's just... I paused, trying to figure out what I was going to say next, but there was nothing. Truly, was I denying it? I found myself asking. Yes. You need to ask yourself why you are denying it, because it's actually obvious that you both have a brewing love story coming up. I heard him say, and I frowned. Would you please stop reading my thoughts? It's so creepy, I said. You aren't as surprised as Vanessa, he said. Hold on. I stopped him just in case he had anything else to say. Have you met with her? When? Tell me, how is she doing? Did that bastard touch her? I asked all at once. Come on, don't stress an old man with a lot of questions, he said, and began to move past me. Well, sorry, old man, if I'm stressing you with a lot of questions, as you say, but I can't help but be so curious enough to know if she's safe, I said, following him. Says the 100-year-old man who just said he's not in love with her, he said, and I could have sworn he was mocking me. But he seemed to be right if I wanted to be honest about it. Why did my actions seem to be contradicting my words? For a few minutes, I followed him around the forest in silence. I didn't know where he was going, but I followed him either way, relaxed and calm at it. Do you trust him? Dr. Eliot's words suddenly rang in my ears, and at that time, I acknowledged the fact that I had begun to trust him. This was someone who had never been wrong about anything he said. He was always appearing at the right time when he was needed. A war is about to break out. He came to a stop. A war? What do you mean? Will I get affected? I asked immediately. You will only get affected emotionally, he said, and I only stared at him confusedly. How will I get affected emotionally? Isn't that so absurd? I asked him. Vanessa is right at the place where the war will break out, he said, and I felt my heart race in fear. Right at dawn, leave with your army, and you'd meet her in the forest, at the cave, he said, disappearing before I could make any more statements or even ask a question. Oh no. I cursed, and just before I could take any step further, I felt a push. Oh God. I groaned, my hands placed on my head as I sat up. I quickly looked around me to be sure of my surroundings. Oh, thank God. Oh, breathed at the sight of my room. So, it had all been a dream. Vanessa is right at the place where the war will break out. The old man's voice repeated in my head. Immediately, I sprang up from bed. How was she going to escape right into the forest? Patrick's point of view. Why did you let him into this abode? I heard the moment I got into the meeting chambers. Can you at least let me have a seat first before you bombard me with questions? I responded back and walked straight ahead to my position and sat down. I could see the eyes of every elder resting on me. Most of them looked at me in fear, while the others tried so hard to hide the anger flashing through their eyes. Then, I saw the Luna goddess. I wasn't surprised, actually, because I had recognized her voice. She seemed to have fallen in love with her. It became my nightmare. Why did she always have a problem with me? When did all of these even start? Can someone please tell me why a meeting was called? I don't remember calling for one, so what's this meeting all about? I questioned, looking from one person to another. They all hesitated to provide a response, making me wonder if it was fear or whatever, because I hated delays. You also can't tell me the Luna goddess has gotten scared of me that she couldn't speak up. Cat suddenly got you all tongue? I was pushed to ask. Probably you should remember your place, little boy. The Luna goddess spoke up immediately, her eyes staring daggers at me, and I chuckled at the response she had given. Excuse me? I know my place perfectly well. As the Alpha King, of course, I said proudly, and I could see her face was down in disdain. Do not forget we fixed you in that position, and you can be pushed out any time. She added, You wouldn't dare. I rushed towards her, eyes glowing in anger. We both stared at each other for a while, creating an uncomfortable environment filled with silence. Alpha King and the Luna Goddess, one of the elders began. Let us put aside our differences and move straight ahead to why we're here, he said, and I turned back to my position. I didn't care what she did after that, but all I wanted was to get this meeting over with. I will ask again. What is this meeting all about? I asked. Why did you let him back in here? The Luna Goddess asked again. Let who? What are you talking about? I asked, staring at her in confusion because I sure as hell didn't know what it was she was talking about. Or probably I knew but couldn't remember. Alpha King, we heard Damien was here the previous day. Elder Alfred spoke, and I assumed he was the one who had spoken previously. I paused immediately, my mind traveling to what had conspired between Damien and I. Yes, he was here, but he is out now. Is that okay? I asked, my eyes fixed on Elder Alfred, although he didn't give a response. All he did was remove his eyes from mine. Right then, I could feel there was definitely something he wasn't telling me. Or they weren't telling me. What makes you think he went out like you had sent him? Don't you realize asking him for the first time was wrong? The Luna Goddess began. I didn't ask him in. And don't I have the authority to let in whoever it is I want to let in? I asked, my eyes heavily fixed on her. Damn. She was beginning to get on my nerves. This isn't about authority, and you need to understand that, she began to say, sending a wholesome quietness everywhere. Even without authority and power, you should be able to make use of your common sense. She said, and I tried to speak, but she was quick to stop me with a wave of her hand. You shouldn't have let Damien in. This is someone who almost sent you to an early grave. Don't you know he is back here to complete what he couldn't finish up the last time? Or are you that dumb? Now what part of I've sent him back out don't you get? I shot at her, the irritation rising through me. Sending him out doesn't matter. He has stepped in already. And that is a problem, she shot back. How is that a problem? I asked her, definitely not ready to back down. Honestly, I didn't see anything wrong with letting Damien in for a brief discussion, especially after his ban has been lifted. And even at that, I wasn't expecting him. I never thought he would find his way back here. Are you so dumb that you have to ask me that? She stared daggers at me. When you let an enemy into your home, what do you expect to happen? She shot at me, but I couldn't say anything. I think we should call this meeting quits if you're not ready to talk about what this meeting is all about, I said, and was set to leave. This meeting is still on. Don't you dare defile my authority. I yelled at her, anger flashing in my eyes. If she thought she was going to stop me, then she was as hell as wrong. You're standing right in the presence of the elders of our pack, and you dare speak to the Luna Goddess in such a manner? How dare you? She stamped her staff angrily, but I didn't care. She started all of this, going against every single rule I gave or have given. I think you should go back to wherever you're coming from and have a rethink of everything you just said, I said. You still haven't hit the nail on its head. Stop beating about the bush and tell me what the goddamn it is you want to tell me. I said and took my steps closer to her. Tell me whatever it is you want to tell me, Luna Goddess, now, or forever hold your peace. What is it you want me to do now? Damien had come in and gone. So, what should be done now? I questioned, gritting my teeth. I watched her search my eyes as if she could get whatever answers she was looking for in them. The meeting room was filled with so much intensity that I could imagine the fear-filled faces of most of the elders. Alpha King Simon rushed in immediately. I could see the panic on his face. What is it? I questioned immediately. We're under attack. He let out immediately, and my brain flashed. Vanessa's point of view. I've been running for as long as I can remember, and, truth be told, I was beyond tired. Finding the perfect spot to take my rest for the meantime, I transformed back into my human form. God willing, I found a stream, and I quickly ran to it, drinking like a prisoner of 100 years. Oh God, I gasped the moment I drank to my fill. In no time, I could feel a bit of satisfaction from the water I had drunk. Then, I decided to take a little time to rest. There was no harm in that, I guess. I rested my back against the rock beside the stream and let the cool breeze of the forest kiss my skin. Very soothing. Just like the old man had instructed, I left at dawn. Surprisingly, the door which I had thought was locked wasn't. When it was time for me to leave, it was as easy as sliding through the snow. Although I still found it hard to understand how powerful the old man was to have caused everyone in the mansion to fall into a deep sleep. Even the guards who were supposed to be guarding the door didn't know when I walked out. When I finally got out of the mansion, I wondered if Alpha Patrick was too fast asleep. And what about the Luna goddess? Wasn't she wide awake, watching everything that was happening? Even if I was a few kilometers away from the mansion, a part of me still felt troubled. And that was because I haven't arrived at my destination yet. And I was still troubled that whatever the old man had done to them could wear off anytime soon, and they would notice my disappearance. Slowly, while I thought about the whole thing, I drifted into a deep sleep. I can smell one from here. Are you sure it's a wolf? Are you trying to say I can't differentiate between a human and a wolf? Come on, I can smell a wolf from afar. And I'm definite it's one. Then are you sure it's one of them? Yes. The smell is far different from that of the others. There is something peculiar about it. While the others ran straight up to attack the Alpha King, both of them stopped when they got the smell of a kind of wolf they tagged peculiarly. Now, they were far away from the others in search of the wolf in order to quench their thirst. You need to be careful so as not to attract its attention. I'm sorry if I seem to be noisy, but I'm also in a hurry, so it doesn't leave before we get to it. Unfortunately, one of them eventually stepped on a tree branch, making a distracting sound. Immediately I sprang up as I heard the sound. What was that? I wondered. I quickly rose up from where I had been resting, ready to find my way out if there was trouble. I think the smell is coming right from here. I heard the person, whoever it was, say. The voice definitely wasn't familiar, and I could get that he or she was searching for someone. Probably it was even me. Here. Gotcha. I suddenly heard and turned only to see a roughly dressed man who seemed to be in his early 50s. His hair looked so unkempt. His nails were long and filled with dirt. It seemed like he had not taken his bath for over 100 years. His clothes were equally patched, looking like rags. Before I could think of anything else, I saw another join him. Who are these people? I wondered. Where did they come from? I've never even seen them. Run, my subconscious suddenly whispered to me, and without thinking twice, I took to my heels. Deep down, I didn't think I could outrun them, especially since my sweet nap had been interrupted. Come here, little wolf. Don't run from us. We just want to have a little chat with you, I heard one of them say. But I didn't bother stopping. For what it's worth, not one of his words sounded trustworthy enough. So I kept running faster. This time, I was heading straight to the cave as the old man had instructed. It was the only way to avoid getting hurt. While I ran, fear filled my heart too. I could feel my legs already getting weak from running. If I stopped now, that was actually going to be the end of it. It wasn't like when I had been in the custody of the Alpha King. He had treated me any good. I was starved on most days. I hardly drank water, so it was permitted that I get weak now from all the torturing. Come here. My mind came back to reality as I felt one of them try to drag me back with his hand stretched out. But I was quick enough to dodge. I still didn't understand who these people were and why they were unto me. What did I do to them? What do they want from me? William. I found myself calling as I kept running towards the cave. I could equally hear their running feet. They were still following me. Almost getting to the cave, I felt my legs betray me as I unexpectedly collapsed. Ah! I yelled in pain. Seeing what had happened, the two men chasing me stopped immediately. The moment I saw them, I equally began to struggle to get up on my feet and run again. But I couldn't do it. I was just too weak. Now where do you want to run to? One of them smirked as he got closer to me. "Let me go. Please, I don't know you. Leave me." I begged, as that was the only thing I could do. But none of them seemed ready to listen to me. Just as he brought out the dagger to put it across my chest, it all happened too quickly. I saw the claws of someone I couldn't decipher. His or her identity rolled out from his chest. In no time, both of them were down on the floor, a lifeless corpse. "Hello, Vanessa," the hideous creature smiled at me. "Who—" I couldn't complete my words when I suddenly heard a familiar voice, the only one I had been yearning to hear for so long. "Vanessa." I turned immediately, still on the floor. "William," I breathed, stretching my hands out to him. While he began to run towards me, I felt the hands of the hideous creature on me. William was too late, because soon he was out of sight.